was wrong to say. I wouldn't change a thing, 'cause in the story of our lives, the best of times through colored glass. Time rolls on enough to let me move on past, but every little now and then it creeps on back to shade my smile.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever the case may be for all of you listening out there across the crazy planet Earth. Welcome to Vestiges After Dark. And I am your host, Bishop Brian Willett, coming to you live from the deep woods of Western Georgia on this March 21st, 2023. Tonight, Regan Forston is back to talk about energy work this time, and you're going to have a great time with him. We always do. Such a fantastic guest, and he'll be coming up here on hour 2 and 3. But first, we're going to do a little liturgical libations and your questions from the ether with Brandon Milam, so don't go away. Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of Vestiges After Dark. Again, I am Bishop Brian Willett, and we got Jamie Wolf here to give us our liturgical libation to start us off here tonight. We're actually doing a little bit of a different thing tonight, although whiskey is involved. What are we drinking here?
So this is a Robert Mondavi private collection Cabernet Sauvignon out of California, 2019,
I think, yeah.
And it is a bourbon barrel-aged Cabernet Sauvignon, and it is absolutely, I'm trying to get the very last drop out of the bottle. I don't usually drink wine.
But you like this one.
But I do like this one, probably because it's got the little hint of the oak in there.
The hint of bourbon, yeah.
I'm not a wine person, y'all, but this, I will drink an entire bottle of this.
Yeah, it's not... It doesn't have bourbon in it, but because the wine was aged in a bourbon barrel, it takes some of that extract out. That's the devil's cut. That's actually getting out of it. So
well, that goes. my dark side's happy right now.
Your dark side's happy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're shifting it up. This is actually I opened this bottle for dinner tonight, but we had some. Tracy was drinking a little slower tonight, so there's still about a half a bottle left when Jamie came through the door to start tonight's show.
I pounced on it.
Yeah, so I'm like, you got to try this wine, because I know you love whiskey, and it's like, I know that wine, it can be hit or miss for you, but I knew that this would be one that would be a hit. So
definitely.
Yeah, so we'll definitely have more of this. We got this at Costco. It's actually not an expensive wine. I mean, my price range for wine is usually in the $30 to $150 range. That's the kind of wines that I tend to gravitate towards and collect.
Funny, that's the same range I have for my bourbon.
Bourbon lasts a lot longer than wine, though, so I think that bourbon's probably a better value in that respect.
This is true. I do have quite the collection going on.
We finished the wine in the first in one sitting, but that's my price range. So I don't typically go lower than that, because after, when you start going below $30, the wines start getting more and more hit or miss. You have to really know what you're getting. Now, that's not to say that you can't find wonderful wines at under $30. You can. You just have to be more discriminate in what you're looking for. And this wine, I got at Costco, I kid you not, for $12. So it's an astonishing wine for the price. So, with wine, price is only one thing to look at. Sometimes you're paying just for rarity, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's good. Okay, it just means that there's less of it. Same thing with whiskey. Okay, I've had scotch that was over $1,000. No, I should say I've had a scotch that's $4,000 a bottle. And I would say that I have had scotches that were in the $200 or $300 a bottle range that were better than that $4,000 bottle. Not because, that they were necessarily, cheaper made because they were cheaper. No, it's just the fact that the $4,000 bottle there's less of it in the world. So they jacked the price up. Then you've got collectors who create a false market on these things. Wine's not as affected, although there is a collection market for wine. But I find that, there's still a lot of quality out there in all of the various price ranges. And just because something's expensive doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
But I will say that usually in French wines, in particular, the ones that I tend to drink, this is not a French wine, but I mean, most of the time I drink French wines, the $30 to $150 range is like the sweet spot. Almost everything in that range tends to be fairly good. But you still got to know what you're looking for. So, there's your little lesson tonight in wine. And I just want you to know our internet was acting really strange today. So it was good all day. And then when we came down here to get everything booted up, it started having issues. So we're not sure what it was, but I did a hard reset and it seems like that did the trick. But this is becoming a weekly problem, folks. So hopefully it won't interfere with tonight's show. Right now we're showing a solid stream, so we hope that it stays with us and we pray that it doesn't change. Okay, so let's go ahead and start talking about questions from the ether, right? Because we need to know what's going on out there on your minds. Oh, and before I do that, I meant to do this last week and I got distracted because we had technical problems, and that's never a good thing for a host to have to be the engineer. So if I look scatterbrained, if I sometimes lose my train of thought, if I sometimes look like I am,
it's not the alcohol.
It's not the alcohol. No, actually alcohol, it actually helps me to think more clearly.
Yeah.
It is the fact that I am overloaded with trying to fix problems while I'm trying to sound coherent on the air. And that can be very difficult. So I'm doing my best. Tonight's one of those technical nights. Last week was worse, though. So right now, I meant to share with you the results of the poll on Nicolayan TV on YouTube because we only had a few votes in last week. Now we have 30 votes. Still not, for a channel that has over 1,000 subscribers, I would have liked to have gotten more votes. But 30 votes is what we've got. So I asked, and you remember this from 2 weeks ago, I asked which episodes of Vestiges After Dark are your favorites? Episodes with new guests, episodes with returning guests, open lines, open topics, and educational episodes with Bishop Brian speaking on a specific topic. And out of 30 people, 47% of you voted for open lines, open topics. Now, I said last week, I knew that was the popular kind of episode because when you look at our ratings, that's the one that really gets them usually the most. Although I will say that we do have some guests that even beat open lines, open topics. One of those guests is actually tonight, Regan Forston. He's one of our highest rated shows when we have him on. So he is sort of like a permanent part of our little Vestiges family now, I think.
I think so.
Because you guys all love him. We love him. And I think he enjoys the show. We'll ask him when he comes on. But the next one was 43% at educational episodes with Bishop Brian speaking on a specific topic. Only 10% of you voted for new returning guests, and 0% of you voted for new guests. So it looks like you want us to focus more on open lines, open topics, and then, some educational episodes with me. So I'll definitely try for season 8 to add more of those in, and our guests that we will bring on will focus on our, your favorites. And so I think you can always count on Regan being there. I know Natasha was a big hit, so we'd love to have her back on. And we got a few other guests that, are mainstays that you guys love. You love Michael too. Michael was on last week, and she's also very popular. So, and I'm just going by the ratings. Okay, I'm just looking at the numbers as they come in, and we actually, received over 1,000 downloads last month on old episodes. So that's actually really good that the old episodes are still being downloaded. Okay, enough of that. How are you doing tonight, Brandon?
Doing pretty good. I don't have any wine or alcohol with me, but I got this.
I mean, you're a pepper.
Hey.
I don't know how old it is. I hope it's not that
Well,
old.
if it's old, it might have fermented, which means you might have a little alcohol in it. I mean,
I don't know.
If it's flat, don't drink it, Brandon. If it
It's the authentic 23 flavors.
23,
so it might be a
or is
little
it,
better.
maybe it's vintage 23. I mean, who knows?
you need to make a Dr. Pepper float where you take vanilla bean ice cream, 2 scoops in a glass, and pour Dr. Pepper over it.
Yes.
Chef's kiss.
There you go.
Those are great.
Those are
But
great. Yeah.
I'm doing fantastic. It's finally Vestiges.
It is. It's Vestiges night, and we made it despite all our technical issues getting here. So let's enjoy the time that we have together. And I know you've got a bunch of questions, so let's get started.
Hey, so this first question comes from Paula from the network. She had asked, we are getting ready to move into a new home, and I am wanting to go through and bless the house. Are there any special blessings I should say? And is using my holy water as I say the blessing the right approach?
Yes. I mean, there are certain blessings that the church, I guess, endorses for the laity to be able to confer. And obviously, every layperson can confer a sacramental blessing by doing the sign of the cross. So that is actually a sacramental blessing. When you take holy water as you walk into the church and put the sign, put a cross of water on your forehead, that is also a sacramental blessing. Now that water has, though, been sacramentally blessed by a priest. So there is that component as well. But still, the action of the sign of the cross is something any Christian can do at any time, anywhere. And that is an actual sacramental blessing. Parents can bless their children, that they are authorized by the church to confer a special blessing that only parents can give to their own children. And the owner of a piece of property can bless that property when you're talking about like a domicile. So it does not, however, I should make this an important statement. It does not replace a sacramental blessing by a priest. That is a different kind of blessing, and it is an important one that every lay person should have. Unfortunately, because of the shortage of priests today, there isn't a whole lot of them to go around like it used to be. So back in the 40s and 50s, all you had to do is just, go in, talk to your pastor, and they would set something up with one of the 10 priests in residence. Now you've got one priest sometimes running 2 or 3 parishes himself, and there's no way to get to all of the families. So it might be a little difficult to actually obtain a priestly blessing for your home, whereas in the a few decades ago, it wasn't an issue. Hopefully you're in a diocese that's still very well funded and also has still a lot of vocation so that there's priests that can come to your home and bless it, because that is the preferred way. But you can, as the owner of the home, bless the home with a simple blessing. And there is a book. I'd have to go. I meant to get it out, but with all the technical issues, I completely forgot to do it. So I might have to put it on the Nicolan Network. But suffice it to say for now, there is a book that has the blessings that the laity can give. And these are formal blessings. However, you really don't necessarily need to follow a formula, because you're not using, this is not a ritual prayer that you're conferring. It's not a ritual blessing that you're conferring like a priest would. It is your own blessing. So you can go around with holy water that you can get from any Catholic church. You can when you go to Mass, you can take a little empty vial and fill it up, and you can sprinkle holy water all around the house, and say the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Glory Be, and the St. Michael prayer is an exorcism, minor exorcism, but it is still an exorcism that the laity are authorized to confer. It's the only exorcism that the laity are authorized by the church to confer, but you can do the exorcism yourself, the St. Michael prayer, and that is a very easy one to remember and utilize for these kinds of purpose. But I'll get that book out there. If I forget, somebody please remind me, because like I said,
the big blue book?
No, I know that blue book might have it in there, but there is a book that is blessings for the laity.
Okay, I'm gonna
And
try and
I
look
don't
it up.
remember I think I have it somewhere in my library, but I meant to look for it. I just got distracted by the problems we had tonight with the internet.
I'll try to find it, y'all.
Okay, yeah. So so that's all you got to do, though. I mean, just get holy water and sprinkle it around every room. And if you have exercise salt, if you happen to get a blessing kit from the Nicolaitan Church, you can sprinkle exercised salt that's in that blessing kit around in the corners of your rooms. Okay, and if you get the deluxe kit that has the exercised oil in it, you can actually put crosses on your windows and doorways with that oil. These are all ways in which the laity can bless their homes, and typically that is a sufficient blessing, unless you have something dark, some kind of dark attachment on your property. You really don't necessarily need a priest, but it is always preferred that a priest does the blessing, but the laity can do it themselves and particularly if your parish is lacking in those resources, then it does actually fall to you as the head of household to do that blessing. So it becomes almost like a type of delegation, sort of like how the ordinary minister of the sacrament of confirmation is the bishop. Bishops are the only ones that are supposed to confer confirmation, but they can delegate that authority to a pastor who is just a priest, so that they can do confirmations if the bishop doesn't have the resources to be able to do it himself. Sometimes these dioceses are so large and the number of clergy are so small that the bishop has to delegate to certain pastors to do that. And that's a perfectly valid confirmation, but it's done in the context of how through delegation. It's not the bishop doing it, but it is his authority through his priest that does it. So the same thing happens with the laity. If there is no priest that can confer the blessing on your home, and your home is supposed to be blessed, make no mistake about it, what you can do is you would receive through that delegation the authority of that pastor to be able to confer it yourself automatically. But there's certain ones you can't do this, like holy orders. You can't confer holy orders. A bishop can never delegate that to a priest. A priest cannot confer that one. So there's certain things that you have to be aware of, but blessings you can. Are you asking me did you find the book?
I found a book, but I wasn't sure if that was it.
I'm not sure what it looks like. I haven't
So
looked at it.
in terms of blessing the house, I know other people have had this idea because I had the idea as well, but like not an aroma, like a water vapor in a way. Can you pour holy water in it and it still be effective, or does it somehow change the properties behind it?
In water vapor, like putting it into a humidifier, you mean?
Yeah.
It does change the properties because you're changing the state of matter. So for a sacrament or a sacramental to be valid, you have to preserve. There's certain things that you need. You need proper form, proper matter, and proper intent. All right. So the intent is usually the easy part. That basically means that the person who confers whatever operation it is, be it the bishop, the priest, or even the lay person, assuming he's authorized, of course. Proper intent means that whatever it is that you're doing it in the mind of how the church intends it to be done. So that even if you were to get it a little wrong, although you shouldn't, but even if you were to get it a little wrong, as long as your intention was to do it in the mind of the church, then it's valid. Okay, so that's the first one. That's the easy one. The harder ones is proper form and proper matter. So proper form is the kind of the thing that you do. For example, you can't go to a local shaman and have him bless milk and you sprinkle milk. Not that you'd want to, because that would stink after a while. But I mean, if you sprinkled milk around your house, that's not the mind of the church. So that's not proper intent, and it's not proper matter, and it's not proper form either, because none of those things are the way they're supposed to be done. So, sprinkling tap water and saying, "Oh, I want this to be holy, but through my intent," that's not holy water. So that's not proper form and it's not proper matter. It might be proper intent, but you're not using the proper form, which you need all three for it to work. So one of the things, like, for example, let me explain about how that works with like water vapor. Okay. If you were to, let's say, we actually had this happen once. Okay. We actually had this happen once. Now, fortunately, the grandmother came to the rescue. But we, in the Nicolaitan Church, we follow the Orthodox method of providing the sacrament of Eucharist to even infants. The Orthodox have done this. I've always done this. In the Western Church, typically, children don't go for First Communion until they're much older, usually around like 7. But in the Eastern Church, they receive Eucharist from as early as being a baby. So we had baptized a young child at the age of 5. And we gave him his first communion that same day.
Oh yeah,
and he just had I don't think it was an attachment. I think it was an aversion to the taste of the host, and he was a finicky eater, most likely.
I mean, the texture is kind of weird, especially if you're a kid, because it does kind of almost melt in your mouth.
It does, and I think it kind of surprised him, and he didn't like it, and he started spitting it out. So obviously, this is the sacred body of Christ. We can't just let that just be spit out.
Yeah, I was about to eat the damn thing.
So we caught it. Somebody caught it. I don't know.
I did.
You okay? So Jamie caught it, and the grandmother said she would consume it. Yeah, because she understood what it was.
Yeah, she was a lifelong Catholic.
But let's say for a moment that you're in this situation and you don't want to take something that's been in some kid's mouth. So the proper way to handle this, let's say it ended up on the floor or something, because that sometimes happens. Yeah. So what the proper thing to do is to take the host outside to a place that isn't being trampled underfoot, like a part of the yard that's undisturbed, and slowly dissolve it with water. Because what you're doing is you're changing the matter. And the substance of the body of Christ is only connected to that matter as long as it still is bread. As soon as you change it, it's no longer the body of Christ. So just like, for example, I mean, not to be gross here, but it's just a simple scientific fact. Anything that we eat goes back out, right? I mean, that's kind of how our digestive system works.
That's not the same.
It's not Jesus anymore by the time it reaches that part of your digestion. Okay, so it's because it changed matter. The matter's no longer what it was, which means it's no longer the same thing. So when you change water to vapor, you are changing its matter. And so it would no longer be holy water. It's like one of the other questions is, if you blessed a glass of holy water and then used all but maybe a few drops and then filled it back up with water, is that still holy? Is that holy water? Did the few drops of holy water that were in the glass combine with the new water and make holy water? At what point then is it no longer holy water? Or at what point would it still be holy water? I mean, how much dilution can you give? Well, it kind of works the same way you do with like finger paints. Okay, so let's say you put like some watercolor in a glass, and let's say you put several drops of blue watercolor in a glass, and so now you got blue water, and now I've got this big vat of just pure water. At some point, if I keep spilling out the blue water and mixing in the new water, eventually it'll still look like there's a little bit of blue in there, but eventually it'll reach a point where the glass is now clear, because you've washed out all the paint.
Diluted it.
So think of the blessing as almost like paint that goes into the water. And if you change it, and that would be the true of water vapor. If you put blue water from watercolor paint in a vaporizer, the paint's not going to vaporize. Okay, it's almost like, I mean, if you distill water, the impurities don't stay don't go to the vapor. So you're changing the state, you're changing the form in that respect. And that's not the way you're supposed to bless a house anyway. It's supposed to be sprinkled. So hopefully that answers the question.
A mystic had a follow-up to that. I think it's important for people to, She says, I'm assuming you need to be baptized yourself for those blessings to be effective.
Well, again, that's particular. A non-baptized, this is a strange fact, a non-baptized, non-Christian could actually confer a valid baptism on someone as long as they use proper form, proper matter, and proper intent. Now, the question would be for me is, could a non-Christian who's not baptized themselves be able to understand enough of the intent of the church to be able to confer proper intent? Theoretically, yes. If they're an intelligent person, theoretically, yes. But it's definitely not the preferred way to go, and I wouldn't suggest going that direction. But it is possible. So I would say that, yeah, you could in theory, as long as you are, using the mind of the, doing it with the proper intent, proper form, proper matter. The only problem I have with it, though, is that using holy water, for the Christian to use holy water, is an extension of their own baptism. It's an extension of the sacrament of baptism. So by putting water on our heads as we walk into church, if you walk into the Catholic Church, first thing the Catholic does is dip their hands in the water, put the sign of the cross on their head, and then do the sign of the cross and then walk into the church. That is not just to bless themselves and purify themselves, but also to remind themselves of their own baptism, what they're there to accomplish. And when you're sprinkling holy water around, but you don't really know or understand what it is that you're actually doing, then you can't really do that with proper intent, can you? So theoretically, it is possible for a non-Christian, non-baptized or whatever to use holy water correctly. But the chances of them being able to do it with the mind of the church, which is required for proper intent, is low. And so I would say in most cases, they're not doing it correctly enough or close enough to proper intent to be able to confer the blessing. So not recommended.
So she asked, so would baptism by desire qualify or no?
Baptism by desire is only in emergency situations. So no, that does not qualify, because if you've got enough time to bless your house by getting holy water, then you have enough time to get yourself baptized. So baptism of desire only works as long as you're on the path to getting baptized, not dilly-dallying about it. So if a person is trying to bless their house by getting holy water and they intend to get baptized, but they haven't done anything to actually do it, then that's not really by desire, because desire means that you're doing everything within your power to get it done. The baptism of desire only works when you are on the path, like you've set up an appointment, but let's say you get killed in a car accident on your way to church before you get the baptism. Then yes, your baptism of desire would apply here, because you intended to be baptized. You are on the way to getting baptized. But baptism of desire is not a replacement for actual the normal form of baptism. It's only for emergencies. It's only a protection that's in place while you're on the path to getting it done. But if you've made no effort to get it done, then baptism by desire is like not having baptism. It does not work. So in a blessing situation, if the person's blessing their house with holy water, but they're not baptized, that's problematic, because they need to be getting baptized first and then worrying about their house.
Right.
I hope that answers the question.
Right. So the next question is for me, and I've encountered this many times when I've been helping clients with what I do, because oftentimes they don't have a religious foundation.
Right.
Many of them are agnostic,
Yeah.
atheists.
We encounter that too.
All the time.
And so when I ask them why aren't they Christian, why don't they have some religion, they say that they don't understand how criminals such as rapists or murderers could have the chance to be in heaven with them. So how would you approach this logic? And I'm going to kind of say that a little loosely, but
Yeah.
how do you approach it?
Well, by human logic, it obviously makes sense, because our judicial system creates a punishment system that fits our crimes. So we have different categories like misdemeanors and felonies. And there's different levels of punishment depending upon what you do. You know, misdemeanor, you might get fined some money. A felony, you could go to jail. A really severe felony, you might go to jail for life or even receive the death penalty. So we have these different categories for criminal behavior that makes us think that God thinks like that and operates like that. No, he does not. Every sin is punishable by death in the theology of the Judeo-Christian faith. Every sin is punishable by death. It is by the grace and love of Jesus Christ that consequence does not befall us as long as we make an effort to have a relationship with him. So, does not matter what sins you've committed, how severe they were. Death was brought into the world anyway, and now death has to be contended with. Death was never supposed to be part of our existence. That was not a punishment even. The Bible uses the term punishment because there's a kind of judicial sort of legalistic way that the Jewish people looked at God in the Old Testament, and Christianity sort of adopted some of that terminology, but it really isn't actually a punishment. Death is the consequence of our disobedience, because when we detach ourselves from the will of God, we detach ourselves from life itself, and we cannot live for very long without that connection. And because God is the only thing that truly lives. We are just shadows of that right now, being built into a more perfect form that one day can become one with him. And that's what we're here to accomplish. That's what salvation's all about. But it does not matter to God how severe the crime is, because everyone deserves to perish, and yet he saves everyone anyway. And why would we want a God that would exclude certain groups? You know, are there people that are beyond, that are above forgiveness, that just don't deserve it? Maybe there are people that don't deserve forgiveness. They're just so horrible. I mean, I think I've met people in my life. I know Jamie has, being a police officer. She's seen some of the worst criminal activity that we can stomach.
I think they were more demon than human.
Yeah, and there's definitely people like that. But fortunately, we are not God. That's the difference. We think like men because we are men. God thinks like God because God is. And God loves each and every one of us equally. And nothing that we do can divide or break that love unless we freely choose to break that love. So the only people that end up in hell are those who absolutely want to be there. And hell's not a place, by the way. Hell's a condition that you create out of your own broken psyche. All right. And that's what it is. But salvation is available for everybody, regardless. And the idea is that salvation also implies that there's repentance. So it's not like you're a child molester, for God, God forbid. It's not like you're a child molester and you're like, okay, I'm going to become Christian now so I can go to heaven, but I'm going to keep molesting children. It does not work like that. You need to reform your life. Otherwise, you break the relationship with God, and it restores your original penalty of death. So repentance means reform. The same thing goes with the sacrament of confession. There's a lot of people that are under the impression, a lot of Protestants that are under the impression that when you go and confess your sins to the priest, that it's just a get out of jail free card. I can be as bad as I want, and all I have to do is just go to confession, confess my sins, get absolved, and now I can go back to doing. No, you can't. No, you can't. The only way that the sacrament of reconciliation is conferred on you is if, when you go to receive it, you resolve truthfully in your heart to never commit that sin again. If you have even the most remote intention to commit it again, you don't get absolved of that sin because it requires your participation. It's not a magic wand. God's not a magician. He wants relationship. And our responsibility to him is to participate in that relationship. It's not just one-sided. Think about it like a marriage. I've said this before. If you have a husband and a wife, but the husband's doing all the work, the wife never communicates. The wife is never home. The wife never talks. The wife never does anything with the relationship. That's not a relationship, is it? And that's kind of what we do to God all the time. We want all the benefits of being connected to God, but we don't want to do our part. Well, no, you have to do your part. It's a relationship. That's what relationship means. There's responsibility there, and we have to participate in that interaction. And we're so broken as a flawed human species that we need his grace to be able to arise above our limitations. And that is achieved by connection, by prayer, the sacraments, and sincerity. So that doesn't mean you're never going to sin again. And it doesn't mean that now all of a sudden, because you've decided to be Christian, that you're going to be perfect. Absolutely not. You're still going to sin. You're still going to be imperfect. But your intention is always to do a little better each time. Each day, you do a little more, a little bit better. And that gets you there. But if you just go into Christianity thinking, well, I'm just going to keep my sin, but, I don't want to go to hell, so I'm just going to... No, that doesn't work like that. That's not a relationship. And those individuals, unfortunately, theology says they perish. And in my work as an exorcist and working also with unrested souls, I can confirm that they do indeed perish, but slowly. And that's not a place anybody wants to be in.
But I think right there, that was a perfect segue into the third question.
Okay. I like when that happens.
You did that on purpose.
Oh, absolutely. So this one comes from Jackie. She had made a post, but it goes into her question. She had posted, I just read something so upsetting. A young woman was telling everyone that they can pretty much do what they want and go to heaven because Jesus has already paid for their sins. And if they go to hell, it's their own fault for not believing in Jesus. That you can go to prison and get away with anything as long as you believe Jesus Christ is your savior. Other than that, cuss, drink, go to prison, or whatever, because as long as you believe, you will go to heaven. That's the price of our sins has been paid. I know this is wrong, but how do I explain to her and her friends and just people in general who believe her?
I mean, I don't know if you can explain to people that believe like that because that's their belief system and they're going to stick to it no matter what you tell them.
She was raised in it and that's what she knows. You're not going to change your mind. You're just going to, you can try and talk to her.
You could try, and the only approach you could take was to get them back to the fathers of the church and to explain to her what they said, because we have a lot of their writings. They're very complete. They were very scholarly, educated men from the ancient world, and they are the direct descendants of the apostles themselves. So they knew the biblical as well as the oral tradition, and their writings reflect that. So when you read the reason the fathers of the church are so important to read is because it's the closest commentary you can get, biblical commentary you can get on what the apostles thought. Because the apostles didn't write that stuff down, but they did share it and teach it to their disciples. And some of those disciples became bishops themselves. And those bishops became the fathers of the church. And then they did commit the stuff to writing. And, everything that the church believed was very consistent for the first 1,000 years. It was only after the Great Schism of 1054 that we started to see separation in the universality of the church, the Catholicity of the church, if you will. And then by the time, 500 years after that, in the 1500s, you had the Protestant Reformation. And that's when Christianity was forever fractured and damaged, to the point now that we have 33,000 denominations growing of Christianity. And that's not what Christ intended. That's not the unity of the Holy Spirit. That's not what the fathers of the church taught. So and they did not teach that salvation is assured through some kind of confession that you believe Jesus died for your sins. That's not what the fathers of the church taught. Confession had to be worked out. Faith had to be demonstrated through effort. It wasn't just a free ride. And I don't know how anyone can even believe that would be a valid way of thinking. Because if atheists are hearing this, no wonder they're like, I can't believe God would let people like that into heaven. Well, tell the atheists, don't worry about it, because he doesn't. It's not that God would let them, keep them out. It's just that a person like that would not be able to ever be perfected enough to enter. And so you have to be perfect to enter the kingdom of heaven. That's why we're here. People are like, what's the meaning of life? Well, if you want to get theological about it, that is the meaning of life. We are being perfected. Little by little, we're a work in progress. God understands that, though. And that's why Jesus came, because he kind of came to help the process along a little bit. And so we're slowly growing towards that perfection. And even at death, it doesn't stop. So a person could attain to salvation, but still not be perfect enough to enter the kingdom. And think about it. It's not God being mean. But if you were to let something imperfect enter the kingdom of heaven, then you create an imperfection in the kingdom of heaven. And guess what happens? You have the fall all over again. That's exactly how the fall happened in the first place. That he gave us perfect freedom and put that above our holiness. And we made the wrong decision and decided to go against his will. And it created the fracture that we now experience as death. Science calls it entropy. But either way, it's the same thing. Okay, so to be restored to the immortality that is our birthright, we have to be made perfect again like we used to be. And that's what the process of salvation is, the process of being perfected. But that's effort. That's not automatic. Jesus isn't going to get off the cross and do that for you. That's not what the cross is about. The cross, his death on the cross was about making it possible to enter the kingdom of heaven. Because after that, the gates were closed. All right. Throughout the entirety of the Old Testament, the gates are closed. Right. But the cross opens them back up again. I am here to advocate for you. I'm here to stand as mediator for you. That's what Jesus does. So he becomes a physical expression that can connect us to the Father, that is so perfect and so far beyond us because of our imperfection, that Jesus can kind of stand in the middle. He's human enough that we can relate to him, but he's God enough that he's perfect. And it's like the absolute wonderful scenario. That's the beauty of Christianity. And that's the reason I am a Christian, because of that theology right there. There's no religion in the world that has that kind of, that can make that kind of statement. There's no religion in the world that even sees the value in it. It's really a unique thing to Christianity, and that's the beautiful thing about it. That God loves us so much that he's willing to do that for us, every sin's the same to him. We have, even in the church, mortal sins, venial sins, but that's only in degrees of what we need to do to correct those things. So there's like little things like white lies and stuff. Yeah, those are venial sins. Okay. We're not supposed to be dishonest with each other, but sometimes to avoid a headache, you might say something that's less than true just to get out of a situation. That's
avoid hurting someone.
Or yes. Yeah. And that's a sin. However, it's correcting that does not have the same culpability as if I go and start mass murdering people. That's a mortal sin. That separates us from God. So greater effort is required to fix that. But if the effort's made, the individual gets the forgiveness. And I'm sorry that the atheist is that broken, that he's this unforgiving, that he would allow or would prefer that someone forever perishes rather than to work towards their redemption. I think that's pretty sad that an atheist would think that way. Honestly, why would we not want to save every single person if we could? Why would we ever wish someone's eternal damnation? That's a horrible thing. That's not what Jesus is about, unfortunately for them. But fortunate for us, because Jesus is about salvation for all, regardless of how broken. And nobody, in theory, is so broken that God cannot fix them as long as they want it. And that's not theory. The theory part is, how badly do you want it? In theory, everybody should want it, but in practice, that doesn't happen.
That's where the free will comes in.
That's the free will. God's not going to violate your free will. He's not going to interfere
Good,
with
bad, or
your
indifferent.
choices. So if you choose to reject him, he's going to let you. It's going to be the worst thing for God. I mean, I would imagine that would be the last thing God wants, right? I mean, he wouldn't have sent his son to die for our sins if he was the kind of God that wanted everyone to perish. In fact, we know from Scripture that that's exactly not what he was thinking. I mean, the entirety was to save everyone. But I mean, even in the prayers of institution, the word many is used, not all. They changed it. They changed it to all, and they went back to many because the Latin originally says many, because not everyone desires salvation, but anyone who desires it and works towards it gets it. No matter how broken, but that would imply you've repented, that you've reformed your life. You can't continue to go on sinning and expect that salvation is just going to be waiting for you because, you don't have to do any work. I mean, does that make sense to you, Brandon? I mean, I'm trying to think. You kind of help me to see these, because for me as a bishop, I take this stuff for granted, right? I've studied this all my life. So this has been this is the entirety of my life, my education, everything. So I take it for granted in the sense that it kind of feels like, how can not everyone know this? But you kind of help me to remember that a lot of the world, this is all new to them. So does it make sense from a layperson's vantage point, what I just said?
It does, and I think one of the biggest things that could fix that perspective of others is to actually be taught correctly. Because at least speaking from my personal experience growing up in church, that was not done correctly. We weren't taught that. We were mainly
We
taught,
weren't either.
as long as you believe.
But even Brandon, how many Catholics have fallen away and they were taught, maybe not well, taught correctly, probably, at least whatever they were taught, I could probably rest assured that it was correct theology for the most part. But were they taught by inspired teachers? Were these people that could actually get to their heart and allow them to be able to experience the reality of God? See, that's what I found lacking as a kid growing up in the Catholic schools. Like my parents were not religious. So anything I knew about religion was Catholicism, but we didn't practice Catholicism. But I had the public schools were so horrible that my parents had enough, and they're like, well, we're sending you to private school. And the only private school in town was, because I grew up in a Catholic town, was a Catholic school. And I can tell you that the teachers there were terrible. And there was nothing inspirational about anything they taught me. And I did not understand half the things I was supposed to understand by that time in my life, to the point that God literally had to come and scoop me up himself and put me with the right people in order to correct that, so that I could eventually reach the point that I'm at now, where now, hopefully through shows like this, I'm doing some correct teaching. But so the problem is, Brandon, it's not even, it's a two-part equation. It's not even to be taught correctly, but it's to be taught well. You could have had all the correct theology, but if you had a really crappy teacher, you might have left the church anyway. So it and then part of it is there's also a third component. The church can be very rigid and myopic in its thinking, and if you happen to be of avant-garde, very if spiritually you're very expanded, if you as a child had a lot of mystical experiences that led you to a depth of spirituality that goes beyond what the church teaches, then the church is going to squash that. And that's another problem. So that's going to drive people off too. This is why this church exists, because we can hold to the correct theology. We teach the truth. No, the Roman Catholic Church, the Pope himself could not dispute anything this church teaches. The only thing that we don't do is we don't do it dogmatically. We let people follow their own journey, and they can come to these realizations at their own pace or not at all. But regardless, we're there for them. So this is why, it's like, I mean, if a gay couple comes to me and says, can you bless us, Father? The Roman Catholic Church shunned us. Of course I will. Why would I ever refuse somebody a blessing? That's not my role. As a bishop, I am to be at the service of all people, regardless of where they're at in life. And so I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're if you're the worst criminal in history. If you ask for my blessing, you're going to get it. I'm not going to refuse anybody that, because Christ wouldn't do it. And my job is to maintain the mind of Christ, to be his instrument here on earth. I don't have the authority to deprive someone of a blessing, but there's a lot of bishops out there that do think they have that authority. They're wrong, but that's all part of the thing we're talking about, isn't it, Brandon? That, people aren't being taught well, they're not being taught correctly. And if they're avant-garde in their faith, then they're being squashed. They're being suffocated by myopic dogmatism.
I think it might be a little too late to include something I was told recently.
Go ahead.
But
we got a couple minutes.
It might take you down a rabbit hole, but okay. I'll go
It's
quickly.
always possible.
Usually does.
It's always possible. If I have to do a statement at the top after the break, I will. But I'll try to keep it short because I want to get to our guest today. I'm really excited for this.
So someone I know had recently came out, and we don't, or not negatively, we don't care, but they're the person. It doesn't matter. But I was told that in a city I live near, like 40 or 45 minutes, there was a preacher. Like, I don't know how true this is. I have to actually look it for myself. But there was a preacher that was calling for the execution of homosexuals.
Yeah, I saw something about that on TikTok.
I'm not sure if it's
he basically said they all need to be rounded up and killed.
My answer to that would be go and find some real extremist Islamic sect and join the Islamic State, and then you've got your people. All right, go and murder everybody because that's what they like. They think that's good theology. But the Christian faith has no place for people that think like that.
Absolutely not.
That is not the Christian faith. That is not the faith we believe in as Christians. And I would say, right to that person's faith, you are not a Christian, and stop representing us as if you are one. You are not part of this church. And I'm not talking about the Nicolaitan church now. I'm talking about the church of believers. A person that holds such atrocious opinions is not a Christian. No Christian could hold those opinions. No, that is not the faith. That does not mean there's not problems. It does not mean that theologically there are not that homosexuality does not pose certain issues. It does, but not any worse than anything else. Yeah, you know what else poses a lot of issues? Divorce. You know what else poses a lot of issues? Infidelity, lying, cheating. Everybody, it does at least one of those things, which means, again, getting back to our earlier statement, this is why everyone gets equal chances at redemption, because everyone is equally guilty.
He who is without sin can cast the first stone.
Yeah, and there isn't anyone without sin. Good luck with it. Yeah. Jesus draws the line in the sand, and I just did right now. When we come back, we got Regan Forston. Lighter conversation coming up. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone, to the second part of Vestiges After Dark. And tonight we've got Regan Forston back to talk about energy work. And I think a lot of you who might be suffering from various issues, anxieties, stressors, depression, really need to start paying attention to the next 2 hours here, because I think what he's going to share with you tonight could be life-changing for you if you let it. Okay? And we'll be taking your calls and questions on the third hour of tonight's show. So if you've got a question or want to ask him specifically about something that you're dealing with, be sure to call in, okay, so that he can talk to you directly about this. But you're going to have a good time, and we're going to learn a lot. So don't go anywhere. We'll We'll be back in just a moment. Okay, everybody. I had a thought over the break about what we were talking about, and I think it's something I've said before, but I think I'll reiterate it. The problem with Christianity today is that they are all idolaters, each and every single one of them, because they have created a false Jesus, and that's what they believe in. Their impression of what they want Jesus to be, who they think Jesus is, and they have completely forgotten the real one. They've even elevated the Bible to a status above God. So what they're really worshiping are pages of a book. They're not worshiping the real God. They don't even know the real God. And that's the real problem with Christianity today, is that they worship their ideas. They don't understand, nor do they have a relationship with the real one. They have a relationship with some fictitious creation of their own imagination. That's the real toxicity of the Christian faith today. That's what's driven people off. That's what makes atheists crazy. And it's why we're in the state we're in. So the Christians have done it to themselves. Hopefully those of us, that are left can kind of hopefully reel it back in. But tonight we're going to do a little bit of that by shifting gears on the subject matter, getting off of theology, and now we're coming into energy work. So I'll just do this again for those of you who might be new to the show, but Regan is a regular guest. He is a clinical hypnotherapist and certified life between lives facilitator from the Newton Institute. He is one of the 200 plus certified therapists who have helped more than 65,000 clients have this life-changing experience. The author of newest research proves reincarnation is real and 3 hours, 33 minutes in heaven. He also does traditional hypnotherapy, specializing in trauma, fears, phobias, anxiety, grief, depression, and spirituality. When we first had Regan on, we dealt with the previous part there about hypnotherapy and reincarnation. We also talked to him about heaven. But tonight we're going to be talking about resolving these traumas and fears and anxieties and all of these other issues. And I said last time this season when he was on the show that I think I want to be able to have an open line to communicate to him when we have clients that after we resolve their issues spiritually have long-lasting traumas psychologically and emotionally that they have not been able to get over because the demonic attachment, oppression, obsession, possession was so traumatic that they now have actual PTSD reactions from it. And, I'm sorry, but psychotropic medication is not the answer, and therapy doesn't always work because it's only as good as the therapist. But what he does with energy work is, I think, some of the real solution, because he uses actual physiological techniques, but he combines it with certain metaphysical concepts, and that's usually the best kind of all worlds because it's a holistic approach. And I love holistic medicine. I love holistic.
Too.
Yes, absolutely. And you are a testament, Jamie, to this.
Right.
So let's not hesitate any further and welcome back to the show, Regan Forston. How you doing tonight, Regan?
I am doing great.
Good to see you, Regan.
It's good to see. I know you're traveling right now, right? What state are you in?
Yeah, I'm sitting right here at the moment in the middle of an atmospheric river.
Oh, wow.
As I was driving, oh my gosh, driving down the freeway. I started last week in leaving San Francisco area, and I had a client that oh man, what a wonderful human being that I met that had the life between life experience in Fresno. And then I saw a couple people in Los Angeles, and now I'm traveling to San Diego for this week where I have 4 sessions to do for people in the San Diego area.
Oh,
so
busy.
as the atmospheric river started coming in, I was like right in the middle of it. So I was driving like 30 miles an hour on the freeway, and I've never had that experience before where it was coming down so hard for so long.
Oh, wow.
That it felt like you're in a different world, you know?
Yeah.
So I parked here. Now, the one thing is with like the light that you see is coming through the windshield of my Sprinter van and onto my face. So as it gets darker here, you know, you might see me changing races. I'm going to get darker and darker and darker.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. So, I mean, that will be kind of interesting to watch it change. So.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to get suntan or like something.
Yeah.
So, but I have maybe a partial solution if it gets to be that way. Like right now, I've got my phone plugged in so it doesn't run out of charge.
Great.
And so at the point, if it does get dark enough, I think I can go in the back and I can put this. We can finish it there where I can turn on some lights in the back where my bed is and stuff like that. So anyway, just letting people know what's happening is it gets darker here.
Well, it's not a problem. You know, the larger part of our audience actually just listens to the audio only version of the podcast. So you're not even gonna. They're not even gonna know it changed.
Not gonna even know. Okay, great.
So you're good.
We'll finish in the dark.
Yeah, why not?
I love what listening to you talking and explaining a lot of these things about the church. The more I do this work, the more I understand the type of things you're talking about. Where growing up, you know, a lot of the things they say, you know, like holy water and all that seem kind of silly to me. Like how could anything just because somebody does a, you know, alakazam on some water that it turns into something special, you know? But the more that I'm doing this work, the more I realize that the physical and the metaphysical are like, you know, most people, anything they can't see, the metaphysical part, they want to dismiss. They don't understand. Right. But the more I'm seeing as we go is that everything that we do has a metaphysical side, you know, like your intent. It's like we're talking about energy psychology today. Energy is what makes things, it's the energy or the intent that you put into the physical actions you're making that actually make something work. You know, so it's like we can't separate the metaphysical from the physical part, you know. And one of the things that I've loved doing since I started 15 years ago, I was right in the kind of the middle of the beginnings of this energy psychology. Yeah. And it seems like that God has now allowed us to discover these techniques and things about manipulating our psychological, our physical energy in our bodies that seem to be behind our illnesses and our sicknesses, our, you know, crazy physical issues. And I've watched over the last 15 years, and now to me, it appears that this energy psychology with these modalities that I use is taking over as the main form of healing people's emotional and sometimes physical issues. It's been really beautiful to see. Today, I'm going to talk about the three main types of energy psychology that's taken over this, you know, the whole thing that psychologists do. Okay. One is called EFT. That's and people that are listening, write it down because after we talk today, there's lots and lots of videos on YouTube on all these things. Okay. And you can get extra things. So it's called EFT. Or emotional. Yeah, EFT, emotional freedom technique. Okay. That's what it's called. The second one we're going to be talking about today is called Havening. It's called Havening Touch. And the third thing is the abbreviations are EMDR, and I'm forgetting at the moment what it stands for, but everybody says EMDR.
I've heard that.
And they're three, they're like all sisters. You know, one of them, you can work them in conjunction with each other or by themselves, and they all seem to have this miraculous ability to heal people.
Is it the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing? Is that what it is?
Yes, there we go. Okay. There we go. That's it.
I just looked it up for you. You're welcome.
Yeah. I always have a hard time with those, you know, that stuff. So now, starting off with EFT, I learned that in hypnotherapy school. We had a couple classes on it, but it seemed too easy, too weird. Like, okay, how can anything when people are doing this or something do anything?
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
And I was thinking, well, hypnosis was more exotic. And I thought, well, you know, I just didn't believe it really. Okay.
Yeah.
But we had a class on it.
Okay.
And then the other part of the 2 years was all learning in hypnosis. Like, what do you do? We learned how to hypnotize people the first 3-4 days. Like, that's easy because it's a natural thing that people can achieve, can get into that state. But then the rest of the 2 years is now, what do you do when they're in trance so you don't mess them up? So we had to learn all the different techniques for, phobias and fears and things like that. In the hypnosis, what we would do, and we could get rid of fears and phobias. Hypnosis works really well, but EFT works in an instant. I mean, it works so fast and so quick. Some people cannot believe it. So, okay, the first time I used EFT, because I'd learned it, but I just figured I'm never going to practice it because I thought it was kind of silly.
Yeah.
Well, I had a client. I had met him at a house party he had at his mansion. He had a mansion in Riverside, California. It was like 8,000 square foot, and it was overlooking Riverside. He had a couple of Bentleys with a chauffeur that would take us from the bottom up to the top. He had a couple of Dobermans that were so trained. They were like amazing. They were like soldiers.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. Well, someone introduced me to him at the party, and he realized I was a hypnotherapist. He asked for my card. That was it. 2 years later, I get a call out of the blue, and he says, Regan, I don't know if you remember me. I'm just I'll call him Dr. Chris. Okay. He was a doctor. And, actually his story's all over the internet. He's written a book about this, so he's okay with me talking about him, for people to know.
Yeah.
So he says, Regan, I need to see you. And I said, okay. And I knew he's about 100 miles away. I said, I'll drive there and we'll do a session because I'm this traveling therapist. And I figure, God's sending me, I have to accept whoever God sends me. So I'm going to go do it,
Right.
Yes.
He said, no, I'm in LA. And it turned out he was about 6 miles from me in LA. So I went to meet him, and I walk in, he's in this apartment. We go in this back room, and he says, Regan, you remember when you met me and I had this mansion and I had all this stuff, He says, right now I have $34 to my name. That's all that I have. Oh my
goodness.
He said, I don't have my practice anymore, my doctor's practice. Someone's lent me a car, and a friend's letting me stay in this hotel here, and my wife's in federal prison.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
He says,
Yes.
I feel like killing myself.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So here, and this was towards the beginning of my practice, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is way beyond my abilities to help the guy,
Yeah.
And so in talking to him, here's what happened. He was accused of being selling drugs over the internet with another doctor in Canada, and the federal government found out about it, and it was against federal law. So they arrested him. He was in prison for a few weeks until he got a lawyer and stuff like this. Well, long story short, over this long period of the trial, the truth came out that his wife behind his back was using his license. She was an addict and was using his license to get her drugs and to sell money to other people so she could get the money for her drugs.
Dear
and
God.
So the truth came out. So he was totally exonerated, and his wife went to federal prison.
But the damage is done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the thing is that he became this thing. I says, well, what's going on? He says, Regan, I can't even answer the phone. He says, if someone's calling, I will not even answer the phone because I know that person on the other end is going to think that I used a couple $1 million just to get myself, exonerated, that I'm some kind of bad guy. And he just couldn't handle that, so he couldn't even answer the phone to do anything.
Right.
So then I thought, oh, he's got this fear. And I learned how to take fears away with EFT in hypnotherapy school. And so I thought, okay, let me try it and see what happens,
Right.
So we did this, this tapping, as I'll explain to people, and I'll show people the points, these different points that go to different parts of the body. And he would say something like, this is kind of the process. He'd say, I would have him repeat my words or repeat it in better words if he had better words than my words. He would say, even though I have this fear of answering the phone, this fear of answering the phone that it's driving me crazy. I can't do it. I can't even function. I can't even answer this, freaking phone. And then I would have him, as he's doing this tapping, he would, as we're tapping, he would say, even though I can't answer the phone right now, I love and accept myself. I love and accept myself, even though I can't answer the phone. Well, when I tested him prior to doing the tapping, I had him close his eyes and I say, okay, imagine that the phone's ringing right now. And on a scale of 1 to 10, your inner vision or something is going to show you a little needle. It's going to go from 1 to 10, 10 meaning it's impossible, and 1 meaning you're great. You know, you could do it.
Sure. Yeah.
He goes, Regan, I'm a 10. I said, I feel so embarrassed, but I'm at a 10. We did the tapping for about 15 minutes. I had him close his eyes and I had him imagine the phone ringing again. And I says, now on a scale of 1 to 10, where does that fear, that energy, how much is it now? And he looked at me and he goes, with wide eyes, 0.
Wow.
He goes, it's 0. From that day on, he was able to answer the phone, just went away just like that. And he was able to begin again to start his, to talk to people, to kind of get out there and get engaged. And because he was such a good hypnosis subject, he went deep into hypnosis really, really easy. I think he's somnambulist, which means somnambulist is someone that can go into trance almost immediately.
Yeah, sure.
Like on a hypnotist show, where just boom, they're so suggestible. So I suggested to him when he's in trance, I says, look, you were a millionaire before. Okay. You know how to be a millionaire. You've got the template in your mind already. So all you have to do is start again and be patient. Okay. And I said, you don't want to commit suicide. You're in your early 40s. You're a handsome doctor. I says, women are going to be all over you. Because, he thought no woman would ever want to have him and stuff like this. So I just put those ideas in there. So fast forward a little bit. A couple of years later, I was the groom in his wedding. And and now he's a multi-millionaire
again
right now.
Again.
Good for him.
Yeah, this is like 8 or 10 years later.
Wow.
So when he went from a 10 to a 0, when I did the simple tapping, my inside I'm going, oh my gosh, this is something, So from then on, I started using tapping with most of my clients. And a lot of times I never even needed to do the hypnosis at all, because they would get rid of their fears, phobias, their post-traumatic stress and everything in short order. On my website, just visit theafterlife.com. There's
the afterlife, theafterlife.com. Okay.
Yeah, visit theafterlife.com. If people go to the tab where it says EFT and hypnosis, there's 2 videos on there and I tell people, because some people don't like to watch one of them because it's for soldiers that have gone through hell.
Yeah, I've seen those. They're pretty.
Yeah. Oh man, just to listen to their story, you're going, oh my God, I can't listen to this.
Yeah.
But I tell people, hang in there, because they'll see those veterans go from like this.
Yeah.
To like this in 4 sessions, and they can't believe it. And they test them 6 months later, and they kept most of the gains that they've made. That's how I say this is almost a panacea for anything having to do with PTSD, with fears, phobias, anxiety, and that sort of thing. So I started using it with people and having this great success. And then I find out almost all of the other EFTers, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands around the world now, we report a success rate with even very severe PTSD and those sort of things of about 90-something%. I mean, it's like, when I'm through a session sometimes and people feel this relief, even in one session, they feel so much relief, they can't believe how they feel. And, some of them said, are you Jesus? And I said, no, it's not me. I'm not Jesus. It's EFT, it's EFT that does it. Yeah. So, I've had people especially when someone comes to me and they have a fear or phobia, and I go, oh, great. Cause I know it's like sometimes in 20 minutes, or just in one session, I have people that have had phobias or fears that make them go into having panic attacks when they have this particular, are faced with this particular fear or phobia. And, it just goes to, it's amazing. One of my clients, he was, this is a recent one now. He was used to be a gangbanger, and he was in a Hispanic group in his younger years. He ended up in prison, and he was there for quite a few years. Well, he grew up, he went from being a stupid teenager doing this, stuff, to having kind of a spiritual awakening. And he called me because he wanted to go he wanted to see, he says, Regan, I should be dead by now. He says, I'm 48 years old. He says, I have I have 11 children with 8 different women. He says I've got 6 bullet wounds, and he says from 6 different battles he had. So he's been shot 6 different times, and he didn't die. Okay?
Didn't die.
And
Oh,
his car got stuck on a railroad track, and the train hit and totally demolished his car. He walked out with a couple of scratches.
Oh my goodness.
You know, so, and then the recent thing was is that he was sleeping, and his son came up and shot him in the head, and the bullet went into his ear, but it came out down here. So it didn't get up in his brain up here. So he's got this scar over here. And he says, I told the police it was an accident with the gun, and I didn't press charges on my son. And my son dies of a drug overdose a few months later. So he is, you know.
Wow, what a mess.
Yeah. Can you, and here's this guy, he's just like a big teddy bear, you know, big, like I wouldn't want to meet him in a dark alley. I mean, boy, he's got tattoos and boom, you know, but he's softened because now he's got some kind of, he's like the, you know, the guy on the cross next to Jesus that said, you know, that got, you know, finally came, you know, to that, you know, realization. Yeah. So anyway, when I had him close his eyes, I says, now, okay, this is just going to be crazy for a minute. We're just going to see where we're starting from. We're going to get a starting point before we tap. And I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, your son shooting you in the head, where are you? And he closed his eyes for a minute, and his face gets, oh my gosh, he gets so sad. Yeah. And he goes, I'm at 23. And I go, wow.
That's pretty bad. Yeah.
23. Yeah. So I said, okay, instead of doing the spiritual stuff today, you need some help with this right now, because this is just crazy. I had to help him. Yeah. We did the tapping. I did the tapping with him for about 20 minutes, you know, and he's saying, you know, even though my son shot me in the head, I love and accept myself. Even though I should have turned my son in and he'd still be alive if I turned him in instead of him dying of a drug overdose 2 weeks later, you know. Yeah. He says, even though I did all that, I love my son, but I feel so bad. I might have caused my son to die, even though he shot me in the head. But I love and accept myself. Even though I have these feelings. Okay, I had him close his eyes. I says, now you were 23. Close your eyes. Think of your son shooting you. And this peace came over his face, and he says, Regan, it feels like a 4. And I went, whoa, okay. So he came back a second session. We got it to 0. The third session, he came back a few months later. He thinks about his son shoot him in the head, all that stuff. He goes, Regan, I know my son shot me and I miss him dearly, but I'm not falling apart anymore. Yeah. I totally feel good. Like we got through that. So that's how this works. Is it just the way that I see it, trying to explain it to people, it's like when something very traumatic happens to you, it's like a grenade goes off inside you and of your energy, and shrapnel of your energy just goes all over your body, you know. Mm-hmm. Just like if you threw a grenade in a room, you look at the walls and there's you know, parts of the grenade stuck all over the place, all over the room. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
What it seems to happen with EFT, as we're going around to the different parts that go to different parts of the body, it seems to find that shrapnel and gently pull it out and put it back into where it goes, you know, back into the energy flow. And when all that shrapnel gets back and goes to the energy flow, I see them, the energy, that crazy energy deflates just like a balloon, you know. And then the beautiful thing is it doesn't come back again, you know, because some people say, well, I get it this way now. When I walk out of here, is it going to go back up to 10 again? Never does. Never does. It always. So it seems like we're healing that energy. We're putting the energy back where it's supposed to be.
So would you say the theory on this, I mean, is it a type of acupressure? Like, are you affecting meridian points and combining that with a kind of affirmation at the same time? That's making.
It's kind of what it reminds me.
I mean, that's what it looks like.
But with like acupuncture, you're moving the stagnation to get the flow going back.
So, are you actually accessing certain meridian points that Chinese medicine has identified?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
It's like psychological acupuncture. You
Yeah.
know? Now,
Yeah, because I've had needles in the spots where you're tapping. I've had needles in those very spots during sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And we're going to show people those because I want people. This is so easy to learn. They're doing it. They started a program back east now doing school assemblies. And the schools could not believe the results that they had with the children. This is doing it with, the person's up there showing the kids how to do it. And they said that SAT scores have gotten higher. There's less bullying going on, and kids are walking around campus going, I love and accept myself, because this is the big thing. Where I see the real healing, and when I watch their facial features in this, when they're going through stuff, where I see the real healing comes in is when they'll say, I feel like, like punching my boss, but even though I feel like punching my boss, I love and accept myself. Okay. And there's something about that when they get real with their feelings, but all of a sudden they go in a sense to their higher self and say, hey, you're just being human. It's okay. And that you can love yourself, even though you have these feelings that you're embarrassed about, or because you're a good person and you don't like having feelings of hate, or you don't have, people are so, they feel so bad, that they feel like punching their boss because they're good people. Everybody that I see.
Yeah, sure.
But it's almost like going to, I liken it to confession.
It is like confession. I was just thinking that.
Yeah, because when I would go to confession as a kid, when I would get my 5 Our Fathers and 5 Hail Marys, I would walk out that door going, now I could start over again,
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of confession that I don't think people realize. It's this energetically getting real in there, telling the priest the stuff that you really did, and then the priest absolving you from that because you were honest and you got real and you were sincere.
Because and it's a part of it is also psychologically you're taking it outside of yourself. That's the importance. Like a lot of people are like, why am I going to give my sins to a priest? I don't need to confess to some man. I'm going to go direct to God. You can. But the problem with that is that it doesn't have the same impact without the exchange of energy by giving it to someone else that can actually absolve and break it up through that sacramental action. So there's something very therapeutic. And I think that's why Jesus instituted that sacrament, because he knew the importance of being able to have an exchange of energy together. And I think this is what you're talking about. It's having a do-over, having multiple do-overs throughout our life is so important to progressing, so we don't get into this self-hatred mode and feel like there's nothing that we can do. So, there's so many things as I've done this work, I've started to understand things about me growing up Catholic, like when you were talking about the blessings and everything. Well, I remember hating to go to on Easter time when we went to the Stations of the Cross because the incense or the stuff they were doing always stunk so bad. It was just stunk up the whole church. And I'm thinking, this is stupid. Just a bunch of smoke going up. What's going on? Yeah.
Well, but now I understand. That's a physical way, or to get to the metaphysical side of cleaning, of cleansing.
Well, it's that, and it's also a way of making us pray with every sense. So usually we're praying, with our verbally. So there's a sort of action that has an audible kind of reaction with prayer, but by burning incense, we can pray with our noses. By receiving the Eucharist, we can pray with our sense of taste. By doing the sign of the cross, we can pray, but with touch. So it's a way of applying the entirety of the human experience to the action of prayer, so that every fiber of your being is actually participating in it. So in a lot of ways, what I'm seeing with this tapping is that it's kind of along those same lines of applying all of the senses so that they are all, I guess, waking up and in a unified action working towards that intention, which is where the information comes in.
Yeah. And now tapping, and people say, well, interesting too, was when I have people close their eyes and the energy, they can go to the 10 or to the 5 or to 4.
Yeah.
What's interesting is wherever that needle goes in their head translates into what they feel in the real world. Because people say, oh, they're just seeing some kind of meter. What does that mean? Does that mean anything? Well, it's like, I remember I had a booth set up in a free speech area down at in Balboa Park in San Diego, and I put up when I put up the thing that I did handwriting analysis, there. Well, when people saw my card, I had this couple that were newly married, an arranged marriage from Saudi Arabia, and this really cute couple, and you could tell that it was kind of working so far. This arranged marriage. They were on their honeymoon over here, and when he saw my card or something, and he said the husband said to me, he said, "Man, can you do anything about fears and that?" And I go, "Yeah." He says, "My new wife here, she's so afraid of bugs that we can't, we're supposed to go to Yosemite, we're supposed to go to stuff like this, but she sees like an ant or any kind of crawling creature, she goes and has a panic attack." She says, it's his new wife, and all of a sudden she's that way. So I said, okay, I said, "Come here, I'll just do this for free for you." I had had her sit down, had her close her eyes, and I said, "Okay, where are you staying?" She says, "We're staying at the Hilton right now." I says, "Okay, just imagine in your mind you have this beautiful bed. You just wake up in the morning to look over at your husband, and there's a little cockroach on the pillow." And she's got her eyes closed right now, and oh my gosh, the reaction she had was just imagining it in her mind. She started going, oh, like this or something. The husband goes, see what I'm saying? And I go, yeah. I had her do the tapping. We did it for about 15 minutes. And all of a sudden I had her close her eyes again. I says, "Open your eyes. There's a cockroach on the pillow." She was totally calm. I says, "Now there's 5 or 6. You see them coming out there." I says, "Now the whole pillows are starting to crawl all over you." She didn't have any reaction at all. Now they emailed me. Amazing. I was about a week or two later or something. And the husband says, "Man, I don't know what you did, but thank you." So
you told us about the guy with the ketchup. Was it a cop? Was it a police officer with the ketchup?
This is time for some humor here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's tell that story again, just in case someone wasn't with us last time, because that was a really unusual phobia. I've never heard of that before.
Well, I wrote a book. It's called Phobias Gone in 1 Hour. It's on Amazon and all that. Phobias Gone in 1 Hour. And it teaches people how to do this themselves so they can get rid of their phobia. It's that simple, okay, for most phobias. Sometimes it takes a little more, but most of the time it's real simple. So I was working in a nightclub where they're paying me to do handwriting analysis, for the patrons at this club. And I was doing it for a man who's a police officer, and he had his fiance there. And we got talking. I did the handwriting analysis for him and everything. And then I was giving out my card. And when the fiance saw the card, she goes, "Oh my God, hypnosis! Can you do anything about phobias?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I said to his name was Chris too. This gentleman. I said, "Chris, so what's your phobia?" And he just said, "Ketchup." I laughed. I laughed right in his face.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to laugh. I mean, because that's such a strange thing to be afraid of.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. Now, we separate in hypnotherapy school. Phobias and fears are similar, but they're different. A fear is something that you have from something that happened in your life, like you were in a car accident. So now you're afraid to go in cars, okay?
Sure, okay.
Or something like that. But a phobia is something you're afraid of. You have no idea why you're afraid of it. Could a phobia also qualify as just an extreme hatred for something? Like you're not really afraid of it in any way, but you have like an aversion to something. Would that be a phobia too?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, like some people, the common when some people have phobias or a fear, the fear is of dying. You know.
Yes.
You know. I mean, that kind of thing like that, where they whatever. But
well, I'm thinking of myself. Like I can't think of anything that I'm actually afraid of. But there's a lot of things I don't like. One of those things is I hate public restrooms. I can't stand them. And so it's not really a phobia. I'm not afraid of going in them. I use them, obviously. But if I can assess whether or not I can make it home first, I'll do that because they're disgusting, and that disgusting thing is not a pleasant experience. And I would rather avoid it.
Well, that could be considered in the ballpark of being like a phobia.
Okay.
I mean, I had one man that I helped to get cured, and he was just afraid of urinating in the presence of other men.
Oh,
in men's
yeah.
restrooms.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he said he would hold it for hours, so he didn't have to go in a big, when he's at a convention and there's always other men in there. And
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
it was just, he said sometimes it would make him sick almost because he's holding it for
Yeah.
so
I'm
long.
sure. Yeah. That's serious, dangerous.
And,
Yeah.
like that. So, I would say it's slightly easier for me to help somebody if they know the reason. If they know the reason for their fear. For instance,
My mother was a clean freak. That's why.
yeah, a little OCD.
Yeah, a little bit. She was. Yeah, a lot actually.
Yeah. I was at I'm a Screen Actors Guild person in Hollywood when I was doing movies. I was at a Screen Actors Guild event, and just people were having drinks and we're sitting talking to a young lady. I was kind of hitting on her a little bit, because I was single and stuff. But anyway, in talking to her, she said she just came out. She didn't even know what I did, but she says, I'm just freaking out because I have this audition in England in a couple of days, and I cannot fly. She says, I know they want me to go over there, and I know I want to get this part really bad, but she says, I can't. I said, I freak out. And I said, why? She said, well, when she was 6 years old, the first plane ride she was with her mother on, and they were flying somewhere, and all of a sudden they had this extreme turbulence where the plane's going.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And her mother grabbed her and just said, we're going to die. We're going to die. We're going to die.
Yeah.
And here's the 6-year-old, and the mom is totally panicking. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that energy left with her. And she says, every time she says, I've been on a plane one other time and I shake so much, the stewardess came up and made me sit in the back so I didn't disturb people.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So
yeah.
I said, hey, I told her I was going to, hypnotherapy college right now. And I was learning how to do the tapping, and she said, well, could you try that on me? So here, there's hundreds of people around. We're just sitting on this couch there. And I did it for her. I said, even though I'm afraid to fly, boom, but we did the tapping.
Yeah.
And she, when she got to England, she texted me or something. She says, what the F did you do? She said,
Magic.
I could not. She said, I had a couple of shakes a little bit. And then the lady next to me started panicking about flying. And I did tapping on her and she calmed down. So, and this stuff, because when I do this, I teach it to my clients so that they don't need me all the time, that they can actually self-administer the self to them,
Yeah.
So, but with the catch-up guy, Chris, we did the tapping. I had my girlfriend at the time. She was working in this club. I said, go to the kitchen, ask if you can get some ketchup. Well, what my girlfriend did, she went in there, she got a paper plate, and she put about a whole canister or a whole thing of ketchup on a paper plate. It wasn't just a little ketchup. I mean, this was a big paper plate.
Yeah.
So after I did the tapping with Chris for a little bit, I had to keep his eyes closed. I said, hold out your hands. And my girlfriend put this plate of all this. I'm thinking, oh my God, this ketchup's going to go flying all over the place. When he opens his eyes, and he opened his eyes, and I still can remember that stare of unbelief. It's like his eyes got big, and he's looking at the ketchup. It seemed like for the longest time. And he can't believe inside his feelings that he is not having the same feelings he normally did.
It's so wild.
I ran into him 3 years. Well, now he's when he said catch-up, he's CSI, crime scene investigator.
Okay, so I can get that now.
Well, yeah, but it didn't have to do with the blood, though, right? It wasn't about the blood.
It wasn't.
He said he's around blood. It's just, and the
so blood doesn't bother him
at
at all when he's looking at blood.
No. He said, and that's what he said. He says, Regan, I
so weird.
I don't know. And I thought it might have been something from, something buried from early on with, subconsciously. But the good thing about EFT is you don't have to find the cause for it to, you don't have to know where the origin of it is in order for it to heal.
To work.
Because in doing this tapping, it just takes your energy and just heals it. Now, I want to talk to you, like, still, as this is happening, I become like the doubting Thomas all the time. Even though I'm seeing it happening and seeing it happening and seeing it happening, I want to put my hand in Jesus' side one more time, Jesus. It's just like this constant doubt.
Well, because it sounds almost too good to be true, you know?
I know it does. I mean, that's the thing is people think it's too good to be true, but I'm telling people out there to listen to this, I've just seen it work and work and work and work and work. And like I would say 90-something% of the time. Now, sometimes it takes a couple of, 2 or 3 or maybe 4 sessions for something where but there's other things that could be happening. But I would say that probably 50-60% of the time it works in one session and people are done with their fear.
We need to protect you from Big Pharma.
Yeah.
This is a technique that could help a lot of people possibly get off medication they don't need to be on.
Oh, yeah, because, it's anxiety, depression, PTSD stuff. Yeah. I do have, in doing the life between life thing, when I'm trying to get people relaxed enough to allow themselves to go into trance, okay, the only 2 times that it was crazy was where I had a client as they're going into trance, they go from beta, which we're in right now, to delta, which is the deep sleep. They would just go boom like that. Wow. And this one guy, he went so quick like that, and I'm realizing he's asleep, so I'm trying to wake him up. I tapped, I called his name, I shouted, and I couldn't wake him up. So he just laid there on my couch for 2.5 hours while I slept.
Oh, wow.
So I'm in there doing paperwork and, doing other things, making calls, and he just had to let him sleep. Well, then I found out he was on meth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Focus on meth. Yeah, when it's lights out, that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Do
yeah,
it.
because they're so up like this that when they start to go to sleep, they just go.
Yeah, when they
they
crash, they're done.
Yeah.
And another woman that was on meth too that I didn't know at the time, but after she woke up, I just said, "Are you on, taking any drugs?" And she embarrassedly said, "Yeah, I did. I'm kind of a meth addict, So it's like, that just crashes them out. But now, here's what really made me a believer, because there ended up being some scientific proof about the physiological changes in the body when you tap, okay? Harvard Medical School, us therapists were screaming out there that this, to the regular psychological community who didn't want to accept this at first, they thought it was silly.
Yeah.
But we started having such results, and after a while you get, a few thousand people doing this, and they're having these amazing results that you want to scream on the rooftops that, my gosh, this works. So Harvard said, hey, we can test that. So here's what Harvard did is they got some volunteers, they took blood samples, and you can test a person's stress level, but it's called cortisol.
Yeah.
That's your stress hormone. So they would take a sample of that and they could, see what their stress level was. Okay. And then they hooked people up to machines. They could see how the brain activity is. So they had people that professed to have a lot of stress going on, and they could tell they were stressed because the amygdala was firing. It's like your fire alarm on a house. When you have a lot of stress and everything, your amygdala is very active. So they took the cortisol test and they watched their brains, and they said after 5 to 10 minutes of people tapping, and these people weren't even told what it was. So they just had showed them the points, had them do this tapping. They tested their blood again, and across the board, everybody that tapped, they had a reduction in their cortisol level from 25 to 50% just in a few minutes.
Wow.
And people, I watch this as people tap and they go from this to being calm.
Yeah.
And as I'm watching that, I'm just saying, thank you, God, this is working for them, because it's like watching a miracle right in front of my eyes so many times. So now someone took it further before tapping, and they took a sample of blood and put it under a dark field microscope. And they looked at the way the blood looks. And they had 6 people. You can watch the video on my website. It's on one of the videos under the EFT tab.
Okay.
And you'll actually see you'll see that there were 6 people she tested. 3 of them looked like they had some health issues because the blood, the molecules, I don't know if call them the molecules or what, but anyway, it looks like grapes of blood, and they were all clumped together. And it's the way your blood's supposed to look is like a free flowing river,
yes.
Where all the molecules are apart and they're just flowing. Okay.
Right.
So she took the 3 people, took a sample of their blood, showed it on the screen, and you could see how it looked like a dark, swampy, you can just tell what looks good and what doesn't look good. She had them tap for 5 minutes, took the sample again, this woman who did this said, I can't believe what I'm seeing. She says, I'm going to throw all my degrees away and just tell people to tap for 5 minutes, because watch it on Visit the Afterlife. They'll go to EFT tab and watch that, because you're going to see that after 5 minutes, the blood was going like a free flowing river in all three of them.
Unreal.
So that's why we actually see physical healings happen also when people do EFT. And we think the common sense behind it is that when you tapping these different parts of the body, what it's doing is it's opening all the channels so that your blood can flow freely, so your body can begin its natural healing. Because just think, if you're one of the worker bees in the blood and you're trying to go to the heart that's got a problem, and there's a door there and you can't get through to get to work.
Yes. Right.
And all of a sudden the energy flows open and everybody can get, your little worker bees, as I call them, can get in there and do the natural healing.
Yeah, Qigong has similar, it's like tapping. Qigong exercises, ancient Chinese. It's older than yoga, but it's similar. And it's a lot of tapping. And it's supposed to get your energy flowing, and you can feel it.
I'm curious, Regan, what are the limitations to it? Like, what can it do? Is there not anything that it can't do?
Well, this is what we say. We say, try it on anything. It's like ketchup.
Why not, right? It's not going to hurt anything.
Everything. It's
we
going
need
to
the
taste
data.
good,
Check it.
But it's, it seems like most every problem that people have has some sort of, it's some sort of anxiety or like anxiety causes this, or depression causes this, and an emotional issue to it,
Yes.
And what this does is, that's what they call it, emotional freedom technique. It seems like when you fix the emotions that are behind the issues that you have, that your issue just kind of goes away, So I have had a few people that, I had one lady who was afraid of going over bridges, and she was with her husband or something. And so we went out in the field, we did the tapping and started going over bridges, and I only had her for one session, but in that one session, I didn't really see any change. And that was kind of disappointing. However, I did have another client who, she was the maid for this guy that was a doctor that was really, really rich. The doctor died, and he started having a relationship with the maid. She was from, I think, Guatemala. From Guatemala. It's not Mexico, but it's down there somewhere, and I forget. But anyway, they fell in love, and this is the most beautiful. I swear, she was I think she would be like a saint. She was just this beautiful woman. Well, her husband had to have stomach surgery. So since he's a doctor, he picked out the doctor he wanted to do it. So he knew this doctor was the best. The doctor cut the wrong part of his stomach out, and so he had no stomach.
Oh my God!
And so,
What?
So he was living off of feeding tubes.
Oh,
So
my God.
she was having to caregive for him, and she loved him so much. But imagine caregiving for this and being responsible, because he had to have all the certain drugs so that everything would work and he wouldn't get infections and things.
right.
Well, one day, his medicine, she got so overwhelmed, the medicine he needed to take for her survival was gone, and she panicked. Now, she had a panic of driving on freeways. Okay, she could drive surface streets, no problem, but freeways, it was just, she couldn't do it. She would go in panic attack. So what happened was, she got in her car. She says, this is life or death. I've got to get to the pharmacy and get this, or my husband could die. She gets in there. She has to get on the freeway to go to where the pharmacy is. She starts to get on the freeway. She starts having a panic attack. And, so she's stepping on the brakes, and then people are honking at her and everything. And she starts crying her eyes out. She can't do it. And she called a friend of hers who told her where she was. The friend came, got her to the pharmacy. They got home, and he was okay. So the friend of hers happened to be somebody that I helped that had the fear of taking tests, that she was supposed to pass the bar exam. and she's working for a legal place, and they're letting her do lawyer type of things, but she didn't have her actual license, and she flunked her test. So they said, "Oh my God, we're going to have to let you go if you don't pass it this next time."
Yeah.
And her kids were saying, "Mom, you're so stupid," things like, and so she couldn't do it. So anyway, long story short on that one, we did the tapping. I did the tapping with her. And I was a comedian at the time, besides going to school, and I was doing a show. I was doing a show in Las Vegas, and I just got off stage, and I get my phone rings, and it's her on the phone, and she's screaming, and she said the F word, she says, "I can't believe it, Regan. I got 90-something% on my test. I passed it, And
wow.
So what she did was, because I taught her this, I said, okay, when you get to a question that's freaking you out, that your mind's going like this because I can't answer the question. She said people thought I was silly a little bit, but I stopped and I said she would do the tapping. She'd go, even though this question is freaking me out, even though I'm afraid I might not pass this thing, I know the information. So I'm just gonna be quiet my mind here. And I'm going to do out of the ABCD, I'm just going to pick the best one that I can. So she said that helped her with each question where she would go like this. She would tap, and then she would, that would calm her down, and then she would answer the question,
Yeah.
So anyway, so she passed. She hadn't got the bar test. So now let's get back to the lady on the doctor. She told her friend, she says, "Look, Regan got rid of my fear. Maybe he can help you get rid of this fear here." So I went to go see her. I had her close her eyes, imagine herself being on the freeway. She was at a 10, of course, and tears coming down because she's thinking, "Oh my God, I might have let my husband die," So I said, "Well, let's see. I want to see where we're at." So we got in the car. I got in the car with her. I had her drive, and we go down like we're going to the pharmacy again. Oh boy. Whew. So we get on the on-ramp or something. And just as we're getting on the on-ramp and she's starting to get on the freeway, oh my gosh, I was afraid I was going to die. Her hands are on the steering wheel and she's like going like this, and I said, pull over. So I thought I was in over my head. That was really scary.
You were doing the freedom technique on yourself, I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
Regan, hold that thought right there. Hold that thought. We're going to take our break here at the top of the hour.
I'll tell you what happened.
Yes, don't lose. I want to hear the rest of this. And Brandon, stick around if you don't mind. Well, you're already here, but go ahead and if you saw any questions in the chat, go ahead and bring them up for us for this next part so that if anybody doesn't call in, we can take the questions from the chat room. But we'll be right back after this. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone, to the third and final part of Vestiges After Dark. And this is the point in the show when we start taking your questions. I'm sure you have many of them, and Brandon's been collecting them from the chat room, but it'd be more fun if you'd call into the show and speak with us and Regan directly. The number to call tonight is 718-362-6380. That's 718-362-6380. Enter PIN number 855-4111. That's 855-4111. to be placed into the queue, and we'll take you on the air. You can also call Skype if you're international. You can call us on Skype free by doing a Skype to Skype call to Eye of the Seer. That's another option. I'll put that up on the screen here for the YouTube people in just a moment. When we come back here, Regan Forston, more on energy work and your questions. Okay, our number is up on the screen there for those of you who would like to call in. We would prefer you call, but I know most of you prefer just chatting with us, and that's fine. Brandon, are there any pressing questions you'd like to give to Regan here so we can maybe answer them?
There is.
Great.
One of these questions comes from the chat in regards to the touch therapy. Can this be combined with other treatments?
Oh, yes, definitely so. Actually, with most of the clients I see, it's a combination of talk therapy and the tapping. Okay. It's like, we talk about their issue, I get to know them a little bit better. Sometimes we'll do hypnosis in conjunction with doing the tapping. What I find out when I have difficult cases, I blend different modalities together. And one thing on some of the difficult ones with the tapping, if we've had a difficult time getting it down from a 10, let's say it's only down to an 8 or 7 or 6 or something like that, then sometimes I'll get them into hypnosis where they some of their blocks, or if people become more honest when they're in trance, when I'm talking to them, when they get really relaxed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their walls tend to come down.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And that, but also too, sometimes if it's been a difficult one, that I'll put them in trance and they'll reinforce to their subconscious, and just saying, hey, you did a good job today, where you were at a 10 and now you're at a 6 or 5 or 4, whatever it is. And just say, just enjoy that and just feel it and everything. So it's like a 1-2 punch, to the issue. So sometimes, sometimes we do that. The lady with we were stuck by the side of the freeway. I just spent a couple of extra hours with her, and we just was start and stop, and she eventually was able to drive. I think the last 20 minutes we went over up, back and forth on the freeway 3 or 4 times, and except for a little hiccup once in a while, she was doing fine.
So all of that frantic, that just went away, and
that felt so. It felt so good.
Well, it also felt like it saved your life too. On
I was gonna say, hope you had your seatbelt on, man.
Yeah. It was sad. About 6 months later, her husband passed away because he, just on beating tube all the time. It was very sad for her. But then she referred me to her brother when he came in from Miami, and this shows the power EFT is in helping people heal emotional wounds. Was her brother, I think it was Nicaragua they were from, is when they were having the revolution, and he was a teenager. Mm-hmm. And when the army came into town, they grabbed all of the 16, 17, 18-year-old boys and put them in prison because they thought that they were rebels, or that they knew where the rebels were hiding or whatever. And her brother was tortured for 2 weeks every day with beatings and electrical shock and everything. Ooh, and he didn't know anything. Right, so it came to a point where the commander there was with him, says, okay, you tell us where the rebels are, or we're going to kill you. And he just didn't know. He was just an 18-year-old, 17-year-old kid. He didn't know. So the commander just told the guy with the electric stuff just to kill him. So the guy they was hanging, and then they put these electrodes all over you. So they turned it up all the way, and he's feeling all this electric go through his body. And he had an out-of-body experience at that time, and an angel appeared to him and told him he was going to be okay. He passed out. The next thing he knew, he was on the sidewalk in this town where they had just taken him, thrown him around the street, and he survived that. But his issue when he came with the tapping was he wanted to be able to forgive the people that tortured him.
Oh,
he said he became Christian after that. 18-year-old, he didn't believe in anything. Yeah. He became a very devout Christian at that point because of the angel. And as we did the tapping, he cried. He just let out all this emotion. And the final result was, he said, Regan, now as I get through some of this energy and I get it out of me, I feel more for the people that tortured me. I feel so much compassion for them because I know they're walking around today thinking of all the people that they had to kill, all the people that they tortured, and how can they live with that, and how much how he felt like he got off easy compared to the people that tortured, because they were just kids like him that were just forced to do that because the government said to do it.
All right.
Yeah. So it just shows the power that doing the tapping and everything helped him to get his emotions in order. It helped him to relax so he could see a bigger picture. And that's one of the ones I just felt so good for him, because you could see that he was letting go of any anger, of any hatred that he had towards these young men that tortured him, So
let's talk a little bit also about some of those other two techniques. So you had EMDR, and then there was the Havening touch, right?
Well, the Havening is similar. Instead of these tapping points, oh boy, now let's see. We'll see if we can do this, because I'm wearing black.
I can see you just fine. I can see you just fine.
Yeah, we can see you.
Yeah.
The Havening now, people watching this can learn it. You can learn it in 5 minutes. It's really simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's just three different things you do, and it has to do with, they call it Havening Touch. So people that are listening to this, whatever, if you go to you just put official Havening Touch, there's some great videos on there. It teaches you all about it, and there's a lot of people online now that are teaching how to do it. But basically, it's like giving yourself a hug. You have cross your arms, and you start at the shoulders. And as you're talking about your issue, you just go down to your elbows. I like to go all the way to the hands, but it's like this.
So you're sweeping the energy back.
So you're crossing, and then going down like that.
Yeah, Brian, do that for just a minute, Brian.
So just keep doing. Okay, let me get my microphone out of the way.
Okay, because now you're gonna. Okay, first check in with yourself to see how your body feels. Now, I'll guarantee you that in just a minute as we're doing this, you're going to feel some energy change in your body.
Okay.
That's why I like to do it every day when I wake up, because you just feel this good, that you can just feel it's doing something to your body. Okay.
Okay.
So as people are talking about their issues, I have them just, take deep breaths and they're talking about the violence that was done to them, or whatever they have in their feelings. And they're just doing that. And so they keep talking, and after a while, they even forget they're doing this because they're so into their story. And they're just tapping, and they're doing that for about 5. And then I have them change. And then you put the hands up here, like on the forehead,
okay,
and just sweep down your face. I think that's why women love having facials done. They can just feel.
It's like a reaction. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so,
I feel a little strange, because, you're talking about all these horrible things, and the only stress I have right now is that driving that U-Haul through Atlanta yesterday.
We should have filmed that, y'all. My God,
it's the only stress I have right now.
I drove a patrol car for 20 plus years, and I was kind of nervous yesterday.
Yeah. So as people, let's say they're feeling depressed, they're feeling anxious. Mm-hmm. So what they can do is they just go back and forth, and you can just sweep down here, and then you go back up to the face. And then the final thing is the palms of the hands.
Rubbing them, right?
It's just sweep. It's like just gentle sweeping. Okay. People will find the amount of pressure that they need. Sometimes I do a little more pressure than that and they just go between the 3 things. That's it. So as you go down, as you're just doing that, you're doing this. When people go to the official site for Havening, there's a video on there, and there's a woman that is totally distraught because she's lost a pregnancy. Either it was stillborn, or it was late in the pregnancy and she lost the baby. And she said she's been to all kinds of therapy, nothing's happened. And so she goes up on stage, this is a training thing, and she says, I'll try anything. She says, nothing's worked. She says, I don't think this is going to work. I'm going to go up and do it, but I have no belief that this is even going to work. And then just watch what happens to her. And she'll say, after it was done, she says, I can't believe this. She says, I thought nothing would work. He says, but it did, and you can just see her just release all that pain and that grief that she has, just from doing the Havening. Okay. And a woman had a fear of escalators, and it's the same as the tapping, where they do the Havening for a little bit. The guy takes her to an escalator. She goes up and down an escalator without hiccup. And she just hugs the therapist at the end, just go, oh my God, thank you. That way. So it really, really works. And it's that's the thing, that God gave us this
the tapping is simple. The havening is simple. It's nothing that takes brain science to do. And I always get a kick out of this because psychologists, they go to college for 4 or 6 years to get their
I know all
degrees and
about that.
everything.
I know all about that.
And the things that are working, that are actually healing people the quickest and the fastest now, are things that you can learn in an afternoon. Now, to me, that's a gift from God.
It is.
Because that
Most definitely.
means that
Self-healing.
And you see, we're in changing times. Some people say the end times or something, because I'm sure, Bishop, the Bible much better than I do. But I know there's something in the Bible there where Jesus says towards the end times, he's going to send all kinds of gifts to the people, where they're spiritual gifts. A common person will have spiritual gifts, and I forget what it was in or what I read or something, but he's just, and that seems to be what's happening now, is there's all this beautiful things that are happening to make things even better,
Well, I think what it is honestly the end times theologically is something that started after Jesus ascended to heaven and Pentecost, where the tongues of fire came down on all of the apostles and disciples, and they were empowered by the Holy Spirit with certain gifts to be able to build the church. And this goes back to almost 2,000 years ago. And that we've been in the end times ever since, because now we're in the times of where Jesus has come, and we have been instructed, we have been taught what we need to do, and now salvation is possible and all this. But the gifts of the Holy Spirit, I have always said, involved a lot more than just simply being able to speak in languages you've never studied, or one of the primary gifts of the Holy Spirit is love. And what you're kind of demonstrating here, see, what I felt when I was doing, I wasn't doing it terribly long, but in the short time that I did do it, there's almost an external sense of love that I was feeling. And that produced a sort of, what it was reminiscent of? That unperturbed feeling of safety you had when you're a toddler and your parent is holding you.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like.
Sitting on grandma's lap.
And so that peacefulness where you don't have worries, you're not concerned. It's like, all of us go through our lives constantly having to worry about our responsibilities and all these things that when you're a child, you don't have any of that. So when you sleep and relax as a child, you sleep and relax in a way that I don't think you ever do again once you become an adult. But yet doing this, it kind of brought me back to some of these feelings I had that I didn't remember until now. It's like this toddler, being a toddler, being held. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. See, and it's all about, it's just all about energy, it's just, I just know it's just like before I start my work, I just do that. And it just feels that it just, it's like doing meditation for a while or something, where you just gets calmed down, Now, because we'll run out of time, and some people only listen to this on the radio. Like I say, even if you just go to Google Havening Touch, and there's so many things up there now. I mean, that's another thing. Is Google, YouTube, it's another God gift, because almost anything that you want to learn or know or whatever is up there now.
That's true.
People can research. People can research so easy and get to know more of what the real truth to things is.
Were you a Star Trek fan, Regan? Were you a Star Trek fan?
I watched them all, but. I think I've not been a Trekkie or anything.
Not Trekkie, but you've seen some episodes. Like, have you seen like The Next Generation with Patrick Stewart? Did you ever see those?
No, my son keeps telling me to watch that.
I think you should watch it, but I'll mention this because once you do watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But you don't really see it too much in Captain Kirk's time, So The Next Generation takes place like 80 years later, I think. But it's more newer technology, more advanced. It's the 24th century now. And one of the things that I always marveled at, because this was on in the 80s, so I was, still mostly a kid, and watching this, and they would be like, computer, tell me about this, that, or whatever. And then computer, give me a detailed explanation for this. And I used to think to myself, Wouldn't that be awesome if you could just go to a computer and instantly get the information that you're looking for? You know, you can't remember the name of an actor in a movie. Computer, what was the name of the actor in this movie? And it knows. And we have that now, don't we?
I know it. We do.
It is amazing.
The flip phone.
Yeah, on a
flip
phone.
phone that they had.
Yeah, that's right, the flip phone. Yeah,
Yep.
that was another thing that was inspired there. But we're now Google and the AI that I guess is growing within it, and the search engine mechanism is basically like the artificial intelligence on the Starship Enterprise in Next Generation. So it's kind of fascinating.
As long as it goes there and not
is.
Skynet.
Well, I mean, it can always go south. That's the other problem with technology. But
Yeah, I've seen all the Terminator movies. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, one of my clients gave me a tour of Google a few weeks ago.
oh, really?
And it was amazing.
That must have been interesting.
For lunch, I went to lunch there. I mean, they have like 10 restaurants on their bottom floor and it's all free for people. They want to have, sushi. They want, they go to this place. They want to have breakfast stuff. They go to this little restaurant. It was unbelievable. And, they let them just roam around during the day. They don't have to be in their, in their office all the time. And I'm just thinking, I have this thing thinking that if Google can stay the course and not get corrupted, it's how employers should treat employees.
Yeah.
Of how they really let them flourish as individuals. They don't try to squash them and stuff like that. But I know it's human nature, just like you were saying with how many different denominations there are now in Catholic or in
Christianity,
Christianity. There's always this fear. It says, well, Google's doing pretty good so far, but then you wonder, when's the other shoe going to drop and someone's going to get in there that's going to use it for the dark purposes instead of,
Well, it's always about renewal, isn't it? It's always about having to bring us back. So it's like, you start something and then after so many decades, it starts to get corrupted and then you need renewal to recalibrate and get back on track. And then something new comes along that helps you do that. I think that's kind of human nature. I think that's kind of the way life works. And I'm not so sure there's anything wrong with it. It's just unfortunate that we have to always go through or learn things the hard way. Why can't we just do things right from the beginning and then everyone's happy? you know?
I got hired one time to do, I did a show, a big comedy show as a ventriloquist at a religious organization. And they were concerned that the people were beginning to worship the man that was running it, rather than Jesus, or God, So they had me come in there as a comedian to break that mold, just to show that, look, it's not just because the preacher was such a beautiful guy and so full of the Spirit. Human nature was like they said, we think people are getting off course here because they're putting too much importance on the pastor rather than on the message.
Yes,
okay?
right. Yeah.
So
that's human nature.
They had me in so I did it was a routine. I got there that day and the person that was in charge of it, she looked at it, she goes, well, you're on, like later tonight, and says, this routine that you have here, this isn't working. She says, I want you to concentrate on this, and these points and these points. And I'm kind of like, oh my God, it's tonight. I spent 2 weeks writing this other thing. And now she's right at the last minute.
Oh my goodness.
So I went back to my room and I had a spiritual experience younger in my life where, in deep meditation, I had a vision where there was a teacher, a guide there, and he showed me where comedy comes from. And I was in this, it was like looking at a sheer granite rock that went up about a mile. And we were about halfway up, and there was if you were in the valley looking up, you'd see like a cave where you could see me standing there looking out.
Yes.
And it was like I was looking at the Wonka factory or something, Willy Wonka, when I looked out. And all the guide said when I was in this deep, deep trance, he says, when you need to write material or you need to think of comedy, just put your place here and this vision here. And it was, I'll tell you, ever since that happened, and I had to write dozens and dozens and dozens of corporate comedy roasts and things for each company and tailor it to each company, I just had so much confidence that I never got writer's block. I could do it in a sense. So I remembered that. So I went to the room and I just said, okay, put myself in that place. I started writing and I did the show that night and people were laughing so hard they were crying.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
and they were so happy afterwards. And because people were, you know, I even forget what it was I did, but you through my two dummies, I had a talking dog who's very spiritual, and then Andy Friendly, who's a little boy dummy who's more earthly. You know, he's more the I don't get what this is all about, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
You know, so anyway, you know, it's that way. So, you know, I was just thinking as I'm looking myself here, you know, people tune in right now, they can see why it's called After Dark.
It is definitely After Dark for both of us now, right? 'Cause it started out, you were really shiny at the beginning, but now you look like you're by candlelight.
So-
It's very mysterious, Regan.
So getting back to now, I'm going to touch on EMDR.
Yes, let's do
Again,
that. Before we go there, hold that thought for just a
Okay.
second. Brandon, are there any questions about what we just talked about before we move on to the next one?
Actually, just one.
Okay.
Can either the touching or the first one we discussed, can it help someone with a fear of mannequins?
Oh
Or
my
a
goodness,
phobia?
fear mannequins, and so you're asking a ventriloquist this on top of it.
yeah, you know, that's so funny because when I became a ventriloquist, I had a good teacher, and the teacher said, you know, your characters are only going to be as real to the audience as they are to you, you know. So it got to be where I actually felt like I split off into, you know, I would be doing something, and my especially Harvey, my little dog, would say something, and he would get a heckle from the audience or something,
Yeah.
and then he would come back with something to tear him down, and as I'm seeing him say that, I'm saying, how did he know that? Where did he get that from? It felt like, and I felt, man, this is getting weird because they were so real to me, but I think they were deeper parts of myself.
Yes.
You know, that I was accessing, you know, that way. And I forget what the question is now. What was the question again?
Does any of the different treatments help with a phobia of mannequins?
Fear of
Sure.
mannequins, yeah, phobia.
Yeah,
Any phobia.
the mannequin one, I would say is probably pretty easy. And what's good about it is, what I like about some of these phobias is you can work with the client and then you can actually go test it. You know, like driving, you can test it. You can test it with flying, you know, a fear of heights, you know, you can take them to a high place and work on it, and they can actually see that it goes away. But again, see, when we say fear of mannequins, we get a little chuckle or something like that, but it's to the person
It's terrifying.
afraid of mannequins, it's terrifying.
Well, I mean, phobias are typically irrational. I mean, a lot of them, like the ketchup. I mean, that's the perfect example of a irrational phobia. But then I'm sure it wasn't pleasant for him until he finally was able to take control of it through these techniques.
Yeah. For you guys, when we're done or something, email me and remind me, and I'll send you a copy, an ebook copy of my Phobias Gone in 1 Hour.
Yes, I'd love
in
that.
there I have you will have a fun time. I list 500 phobias, I think, in there.
Okay.
And when you read some of them, you're going to think you're going to laugh your head off.
Yeah, I bet
Just
it's
be like, what? I mean, just like there's one in there, it's a fear of looking up. There's some people, if they look up, they go into a panic attack. You know,
Wow.
something
There's
for
there's one in
everybody.
there. You know, there's one there. It's the fear of penises, and I think we can kind of figure out what that one's about.
I mean, I guess that could be a little scary sometimes, but I mean, I get certain ones like fear of spiders, fear of snakes. I mean, these things can be harmful. I get that. Fear of flying. Well, we're not really supposed to fly, so I can understand planes do crash, although it's rare they can crash, and it's probably not a pleasant experience on your way down. So there's certain phobias I get because they're just like, we do certain things that are outside of our paradigm. Fear of heights. I mean, you can fall, so that's a natural one. But when you talk about like fear of ketchup, fear of looking up, these are where it really gets irrational. And so this technique is great to be able to help people to overcome things like that, for sure.
Now, this won't make you stupid. In other words, to take away your fear of heights, that doesn't mean you're going to do something dangerous where you could fall or something.
Sure.
But what it does is it takes away the excess fear. Okay. That's
So
what I
they're
tell
not going
people.
to like become a mountain climber now, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Like Chris with the fear of ketchup, when I ran into him 3 years later, I didn't recognize him, but he came up and I forget where I was somewhere. And he said, "Do you remember me?" And I know. And he says, Chris, ketchup guy. And I went, oh yeah. And I said,
You can
how's it
remember
going?
the
He says,
ketchup guy.
Yeah.
yeah. He
Never
says,
forget him.
he says, since that day, he's never had another panic attack, but he said he still won't eat it.
He won't eat it.
Yeah.
He won't eat it. Yeah. But that, that thing is gone. And, I had a roofer that was a fear of heights. So, every day when he had to go up on a roof, only when he would get right to the edge, which we all feel a little scary, but it was debilitating for him when he had to get right to the edge. It was just horrible for him. So now, he still has a little bit of oomph, but it's not ruining his day.
Right.
He's able to get his work done without that, so that's what this does. And that's what the Havening Touch does. And the EMDR now, is a sister to these other two. And what the therapist will do is while you're describing your issue, like right now, is to say I'm the patient and I'm saying, oh, when I got mugged, when those 5 men, beat the crap out of me, those men that I hate, and that I hope will die and go to hell, kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
And the pain that I feel and the embarrassment that I feel that those men beat me up or whatever. And what the therapist will do is have you just follow his finger.
Mm-hmm.
Back and forth as you're talking. And it's like we do, as people are talking, we do these disruptive techniques because they're into their story, they're into the feeling of it, and all of a sudden they're having to do this and that. And it's like if you're trying to tell a joke and you got this joke and you can't wait to get the energy out, and then someone keeps interrupting you in the joke. And so the joke goes flat.
Yeah.
You can't even, that's kind of how their situation, it kind of goes. Now, the only thing that they're thinking here, they don't know exactly what it works, but what they're doing is they're going right brain, left brain, right brain, left brain.
Yeah.
So do they follow with just their eyes or the whole head?
Just with your eyes.
Okay,
And
so your head stays still.
You can do it with the whole head.
Okay.
It's okay too, but
So
if
would that be a
the eyes is best.
representation of REM sleep?
Well,
It does
I
kinda
don't know,
mimic
but
it.
now I was thinking of that too when you said that, because when you know what, you might have just hit on something there. Because
Brandon's
when
like
they
that.
say
He does
when
that.
we're sleeping, when we're REMing, what we're doing is we're balancing the day. We're balancing things. We're throwing files away that we don't need. We're keeping what we need to keep. And maybe that's like your secretary in there when you do REMing, is you're going right, left, right, and you're putting everything back in calming everything down, putting everything back down to normal or something like that. So you might have something there. It might have something to do with that. We don't know for sure yet that way. But I know when I'm putting people in trance, I have them as they're relaxing and everything, and I tell them that their eyes are completely shut now, and they're so tight that even if they wanted to open them, they can't. But they're tight, but their eyes are able to move easily. And I say, and as you go from right to left, you feel yourself going deeper and deeper down. And as I see their eyes begin to go under their eyelids. And sometimes if I don't mention that, even when that's a sign that people are in trance when they're REMing, that's when you can tell.
Right.
And sometimes you'll see just the whites, their eyes will kind of go up in their head a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll just see the whites of their eyes. And what's weird is I'm having conversations with people. I see the whites of their eyes are going back and forth, and they're saying, I don't think I'm in trance, Regan. because you're aware on some point that this is going on. See, that's what people think. They think you go into trance and you don't remember anything. You just wake up and then you're changed somehow, but no, during hypnosis, you're constantly totally aware. You're just so relaxed. You got your body in this very, very relaxed state, and it allows you to access more information that you have inside yourself, So it's very, 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 very simple. So I'm hoping people go to Google, look at Havening Touch. There's people on there that'll teach you how to do it. So many loving people out there that are just giving this stuff away for free. Tapping, the points. I can show you just a few of the tapping points now, but there's on my website, there's a diagram. There's videos.
Does it matter what order you do it in, or does it?
No.
That's one
Okay.
of my questions too.
I'm glad you brought that
Sequence.
up, Brian, because I teach it from the head down because it's just easier to remember.
Okay.
But the different, like the karate chop point on the, on the, karate chop points, usually where I have them start and then I have them go from the head down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like right where the ears are, if you had a headband going up, like on the top up here. And I use 3 or 4 fingers on the top because I don't know exactly where that is, acupuncturists could actually do it a little more precise. But
Sure.
Yeah,
I
it's
just
right
bang around on.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
right at the back
this is-
where your crown kind of meets.
Yeah.
Yeah. An acupuncturist told me that's the last thing that closes off when your body's being formed. And it's like a huge junction box with this wiring that goes all over your body,
Mm-hmm.
And then the next three are you're surrounding the eyes, like to the above the nose, right to the side of the eyebrow. And then it's right to the very side on the bone right there, right across from the eye at the bottom of the eyebrow. And then it's right underneath the eye on the bone right there, right below the eye.
Orbital socket.
So it's like, here's 1, here's 2, we have 3, 4, 5. The next 2 are easy, right here in this part right under the nose.
Okay.
That's 6. And right here in the cleft of the chin is 7. Okay. Now the other 2, it's like where you got the 2 bones right here, your collarbones, where they come together. It's in the fleshy area to the side. If you push and you find the sore spot, that's usually where it is.
Oh, okay.
It's somewhere in there.
Yeah, I
and
feel
so
it.
I use my fingers. I just tap, and you don't want to hurt yourself, but you don't want to be too light either. You want to disrupt that energy there. And the last one, if you figure where the nipple is and you went around to your side, right if you were equally down, down your side, there's a sore point. If you push over there too, usually you'll find it and you go, oh, that's it. Because that's usually there. So then I use my fingers and just tap over there. And then you're back to square one again.
Okay.
Okay. So
fairly easy. Yeah.
The karate chop point, top of the head. There are 3 around the eye, side of the eyebrow here, underneath the eye, underneath the nose, right here in the chin, right here in this fleshy area here. This one I know goes to the lungs. I know because I had a lung issue, so I was doing that all the time. And I know this one goes to the stomach.
Which one goes to the stomach? Because we both need that one, don't we?
Yeah.
Right here.
Right
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
There you go.
Tapping the heck out of
Start
it.
tapping it.
That's Brian. That's how this was discovered. Is a lady was going to a therapist for an emotional issue she was having. On the 3rd session, she got mad at the therapist. She says, look, all I do is I come in here. You make me talk about my problems all the time. I get sick to my stomach and nothing gets better. The psychologist was studying acupuncture at the time. And when she said her stomach got sick, he knew that this was the meridian for the stomach. So he had an aha moment or an inspiration. He says, well, while we're talking about your issue more, I want you to take your fingers and massage this part right underneath your eye. So she's talking about her issues. And 10 or 15 minutes later, she stops him. She says, my stomach doesn't hurt anymore.
They do work. Those acupuncture points. She used my acupuncturist used them on me, and it's daunting to see a little needle coming right at you. They're really small, but she'll put 3 of them right in a row in about a 45-minute session, and you do feel better. You get relief if you have stomach issues.
Well, at the same time that Harvard School studied EFT, they studied acupuncture and acupressure. And they said with all 3, there's a beneficial physiological effect on your body with all these 3 modalities. It's no doubt. So what I tell my clients, I said, even if you don't have a problem, why not tap every morning when you get up so your body is running optimally? So, so that way you can keep your energy straight all day. It's just like, straightening everything out, opening any blockages you have, your body can naturally heal itself, or you can keep your emotions at, just tap. Have my parents do that. One of my clients, another CSI person, was referred to from the other CSI person. I got rid of her by doing the tapping. We got rid of her fear of roaches, which she had, which was just horrible, and we got rid of that. But when she used it, when she sent me an email and said, Regan, I'll tell you when this is saving my life. It says every time my ex-husband comes and we have to swap the kids, he's always wanting to push my buttons. We get in a big argument right in front of the kids. It's horrible. Yeah. So she said, I knew he was coming over, and she says, okay, I got this new tool that Regan gave me. She says, I went in the bathroom so my kids wouldn't think I'm silly. She sat on the john for a minute and she did this tapping, and it was like, even though that son of a bitch is going to be here in a minute, he's going to try to push this. I'm not going to do it this time. I love and accept myself, even though I have this feeling towards my ex, and whatever. She said she went to the door. He's standing there and stuff like this. And she said she was calm as a cucumber. She says, you don't know how good that felt to just let all that go by me.
Right.
And to be calm about that.
Right.
You know, so, and also too, here's another important thing. When people are doing the tapping, they have, for it to work, they have to get to their true feelings for it to work. I'll make this because I know we're probably running about out of time here.
We've got about a little over 11 minutes, 12 minutes.
Okay, cool. Well, this is real important for the tapping to work. Sometimes when we're doing the tapping and someone's at a 10 and then we tap and they're like at a 9 or it's not, the meter's not moving. 2 reasons for that. This is where fine tuning is real important to the tapping and why sometimes it takes a little more work. Every issue is like an onion of issues. Like for instance, for my clients, women that have experienced rape, okay, there's the act itself. Okay, that's the one thing that they want to get down, just the whole everything. The other one is the embarrassment of people finding out. Okay.
Yeah.
The other one, if they went to the police, sometimes the police abuse them all over again by trying to, you know, because if they go to court, the other people are going to try to make them look like a whore or that they were dressed inappropriately and that they caused it. They get abused all over again, these women that go to court. I just it's horrible. And then, so when I had a client that was talking to me about this, we weren't getting anywhere. And then when we had to dig a little deeper. And one of the big things where we started getting the needle to go down was the having to tell her parents, okay, for some reason, whatever, just having that was just like, that was freaking her out that her parents or her dad would know she was raped or something. Yeah. So then we tapped on that as an individual part of that onion. Okay. So sometimes you have to tap each layer until you get it down. Mm-hmm. Each layer to get it down. One of my clients that was molested by her dad it's one of the richest families in America, and he molested all 3 daughters, and it ruined the family. Yeah. And I saw her when I was down to Mexico, and she was living in a house with no toilet, no running water, no electricity, and she had like 13 dogs she was trying to save and feed every day down there. Well, what she was, when we started doing therapy, she was taught to be a debutante, high society, that kind of thing, not to say anything bad about people, to make things always look good. So when we're doing the tapping, she's saying, even though I really dislike my dad for what he did to me when he touched me that way, even though he did that, I love and accept myself. We weren't getting anywhere. And I said, you know what? You're not saying what you really feel. I said, look, you're around me, you got to say what you really feel. Oh my gosh. In about 10 minutes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't want to, but if I said the cuss words you said on the show, I don't know, even you would probably bleep it.
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, no. No. Guarantee you we probably said it.
She finally, where we got this, because this was her true feelings. It wasn't she disliked her dad. She hated that mother effer. Okay. Yeah. She would cut his off if she was right there right now. Yeah. And man, when she got into that, and these were her real feelings coming out, we went down to an 8, to a 6, to a 5, to a 4, to a 3, because she let her true feelings out. Okay. So if people do this by themselves, it's a little easier. A good time to do this is in the shower. You got the shower running on you with that, how cleansing and good that feel is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I tell my clients, you can get in there if no one's around. You can even pound on the walls, and just say, I hate my body, but I love and accept myself, even though I have these feelings like this. But another point that was good too was a case we had in school was a little boy who in 2nd grade, he still wasn't potty trained all the way, and he had an accident in school, and everybody smelled it, and everybody was pointing to him. Oh, and boy. They called him the little. Yeah. He began known as the little.
With them all the way through school.
Oh my gosh! So they sent him. They sent him to a doctor. There's nothing wrong with him. They went to a psychologist. They weren't getting anywhere, but the psychologist knew a tapper. So they said, send him to the tapper because maybe that'll help. So the little boy was saying, in the tapping, even though I mess my pants, I love and accept myself. They weren't getting anywhere. Finally, a psychologist with the parents were there too. So the little boy says, I want you to say this. Because at school, he was known as the little shit kid or the little shit boy. Okay. Yeah. So the power was in that
the word shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So once he had the little boy say, even though I shit my pants in class, I love and accept myself. Boom, 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 boom. That was where the energy was held in that word. And once he got real about that, then the boy he ended up being fine. Okay.
So you need to be raw and honest about what you need to say.
Yeah. So you got to be honest about what your true feelings are for it to work. And you have to realize that every issue has multiple layers to it. And
but it
you
seems to
sometimes
also,
have to
though,
tap on
Regan,
each layer.
I mean, you get the different layers, yes. But it also seems to have a lowest common denominator that I'm detecting here, in that there seems to be either an unconscious or perhaps somewhat subconscious self-loathing that has to be overcome.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, I can't tell you. I mean, it's very happens very often when I'm having people tap and I haven't told them what they're going to say. But when I have them to say, even though I have this feeling, I love and accept myself. I have had so many people not even be able to begin to say that.
They
bawl like a baby.
Self-loathing.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And then we realize that this is what we got to work on. We really got to work on that, that they have these issues. So the way I found around that is I'll say, okay, I say right now, look, I know you have some self-loathing. We're going to work on that. Don't say I love and accept myself. What I want you to say is this: even though I have this problem right now, even though I have this hatred, there's something towards this, someday I may be able to say I love and accept myself. And they will say that, and in about 10 or 15 minutes, all of a sudden, as they're saying that, then I'll say, and I love and accept myself. And they'll say it. They'll finally say it for like the first time. And I've had some of them go into cry for, I don't know, 10 minutes when they finally say, I love and accept myself. Wow. And that's what I think, right. What you guys are doing, right. And what I'm doing, this is all about, if we can't get people to just love themselves, that's the whole key to everything. Isn't it? The whole key to everything is to, and I love this saying right now. And Natasha gave it to me. And I love it. It's,
Natasha's amazing, by the way.
Oh, She is. I just love her. And it's just like, I am, you could say, I love and accept myself as I am perfectly imperfect. I am perfectly imperfect, and it's that saying that we're human beings, that we have feelings of hatred sometimes like that, and we honor ourselves, but we still have that other part of ourselves, and we're human beings, and we can heal that. This exercise, now I'll give you a real quick exercise that works. I'll tell you, it works if people will do this for helping. You can, your subconscious now that you're working with, it's trying to help you, but a lot of times it can harm you. As you get to self-loathing in it, when you look in the mirror at yourself, your subconscious is going, "Ooh, there's someone we don't like," because you know how the person feels inside. If people will look in the mirror, no one has to be around. You're going to look at yourself head on. And as hard as it is to say, you got to stand there and you look, and with as much feeling as you can bring up, like I'm looking at Regan right now and I go, Regan, I love you. Oh my God, I love you. You're perfectly imperfect, but I love myself. I love you. And it's hard for some people to do it first. But if they do that, here's what happens. When you're looking in the mirror, your subconscious is seeing a person in the mirror. And when you bring up feelings of love, like I love you, all of a sudden the subconscious is going, oh, that image that we see there, we love that person? Really? I thought we hated that guy.
So you're changing the channel.
And you do that. It's like you can fake it till you make it. And you'll be surprised that when people will know that they're really beginning to love themselves, when they were looking in the mirror and they're afraid to look themselves in the eye, or they go, oh, to that person in the mirror, all of a sudden you walk by one day and you glance, and all of a sudden you see yourself in the mirror and you smile like you saw a friend.
And if you can do it naked, then you know you've arrived, right?
Yes. Yes, I tell people, I said, just be naked. Look at yourself and you're total vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that happened to me. And I tell you, it was like, I just, I got that exercise. I started doing it. And after a few months or something, I looked in the mirror and I smiled at myself and I went, oh man, I guess I kind of like that guy.
Regan, we've got about 5-6 minutes, but I'm seeing that there's some questions out there.
Moosh has one.
So let's go ahead and get to that, because I don't want to miss anybody.
Right. Okay. I'll try to be brief.
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We still got a little bit of time. We've got about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, it was Marina. She was asking, well, it's allergy season, and you're coughing and hacking too there, Regan. So we have a question from Marina. Is there a tapping technique that you know of that will help with her sinus issues?
Yes. Matter of fact, if you on my site, there's a 6-minute video on there, and it seems like an infomercial, but it's not, because everything on there works exactly as they say. And on there, there's one of the women on there is talking about getting rid of her allergies by doing the tapping. A lot of times you have allergies now because you have an imbalance somewhere in your body.
Mm-hmm.
So by doing the tapping again, you're opening everything up so that your body can, can fight those allergies and stuff where, you might have some blockages. So I would say yes, I said it should be worth a try, even just doing it yourself for a week or two and do it and see. But I would say it would work.
So using the same techniques you showed us.
Yeah, the tapping. Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's the affirmation that changes, but the tapping is usually the same. From what?
Well, in her case, it might be the physiological changes in her body just from doing the tapping.
Oh, okay.
If she, that way, just because you're gonna, when all the gates are open and your energy can flow freely, your body will heal itself through so many things. On the website, on that one video, you'll see there's a man that had Lou Gehrig syndrome, wait a minute. Oh gosh, it's a really bad one that he had. And all he did was the tapping. He was in a wheelchair, brought him out of his wheelchair. He was doing jumping jacks, and they found no trace of that in his body anymore. And the doctor on there says, I see that happen often when we get rid of the emotional, heal the emotional part of the body, and get the body going there, the body naturally will heal itself. So it's amazing. It's very powerful. I would just by balancing our energy, Yeah.
Do we have any others?
I'm going through Brandon. Did you
see any?
I didn't see any other than the questions that you just asked.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think,
fascinating show.
It is fascinating. And, I think we need to definitely explore this even further. Regan, you do so many amazing things with your work and the books you've written and the experiences you've had. And right down to the mystical experiences that kind of led you on this path. But I guess my final question to kind of close this out for tonight, and we only have like maybe 2 or 3 minutes to answer it. But what do you think will reach a point, our society, do you think it will reach a point where we can leave behind things like psychotropic medication and invasive procedures and move into a more holistic type of healing like what you're describing? Do you think we're going to reach that point?
I think it's heading in that direction for sure.
That's good.
I hope so.
That the information now, when I have people on the other side, like they're in heaven and they're asking about their medications and that, not all the time, but in general, they're against people taking too many medications. Mm-hmm. But they will say sometimes those medications might work. They kind of leave it into the decision of the people, but they want them to be aware that just don't take everything just because everybody wants you to take it or anything. But be, like when we were over there and asked about the COVID, when I went to the other side the second time and we asked 28 of us therapists asked about COVID.
Right.
We asked, they were pretty non-committal on stuff. We said, what about the vaccines? And they said, well, it's an individual choice. If someone wants to take it and thinks it'll help them, it might.
So there's wisdom on the other side. I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
What a novel idea. Take responsibility for yourself.
I have some of my clients at ADHD and the drugs that they're on, at least at the moment, are working great. I have others that it's a total nightmare.
Yeah.
A total nightmare. So I think it's a lot of self-responsibility, a lot of trying to, just like what we eat. If we eat better, we have to try different things, see if they work for our body.
Mm-hmm.
Some people,
everybody's different.
Everybody's different. So, there's a lot of work we have to do, but I think that God will reveal to that person who does the work of doing the research and everything. And because there's ways out there that we can go, that we can learn, we just have to not be lazy and get to, like me, I'm getting over this. I had the flu a month ago and I've had this cough hanging on still. So I'm going to go to Kaiser on next, when I get back and see if I need some antibiotic or something, because whatever's in my lungs is just not getting better.
Oh, so, really? Okay.
I'm coughing. Yeah. But I had a lung issue where I spent 2 months in the hospital, 4 months, or
6 years ago now, and I think my lungs are a little compromised. So
Yeah, don't play
if I
with
get
that.
something in there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely be
Heal as well.
careful,
Well.
and we'll keep you in our prayers for sure. Real
Oh,
quick,
please,
how
put me on
can
your prayer list.
Oh, you always, you all our
Always.
guests are, all our audience,
yeah.
everybody. But I think that's pretty much it. Just if you could,
Yeah.
real quick, how can people reach you again?
Okay, it's real simple. Visit the Afterlife. There's 2 T's in there. visittheafterlife.com. Some great videos on there on the spiritual therapy and also on the regular therapy. I'm doing more and more therapy. Like now I'm traveling, we're driving 1,200 miles there and back to where I'm going. But that's just where God's led me. But also I do a lot on Zoom. The tapping can be taught on Zoom. Actually, hypnotherapy can be done. People don't realize how easy it is to be hypnotized you can even do it over the phone if someone's just listening to you.
Wow.
But I like Zoom because, I can see them face to face. I can see their reactions.
Well, maybe
And,
we'll
as
have
long
you
as-
back to talk
yeah.
about hypnosis on next time you visit. I'd like to hear more about that.
fascinating,
Yeah.
yeah.
That would be great because there's so many misconceptions about hypnosis.
Yeah, I want
Well,
you to
we'll,
try to
we'll
do something.
definitely do that. But
can be
thank you,
good.
Regan. Thank you, Brandon.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, everybody out there, for listening to tonight's show. We really appreciate all of you. We love all of you. And we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. How to identify a cult. We'll be doing this very academically. We'll be talking about cults next week. Could get a little dark, but I think it's important information. Okay, so that's what's next week, and it will be yours truly discussing it. Hopefully, Father Chris will join us. I don't know where he
Hopefully.
was tonight. He was supposed to be here, I think, but I
I'll
don't
check
know.
again with them.
Anyway, until next week, I'll see you guys out there in the ether. God
Thanks,
bless
everybody.
everyone.